Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight, extremely honored to have a guest we haven't had on in a long time, and I've talked about him quite a bit on this show over the years, is Mike Ricksecker. If you're not familiar with him, he's been a guest on this show, but he's been on plenty of different TV shows, Ancient Aliens just recently, part of Gaia TV. He's a great author, and actually, he's written 8 historical books. He wrote the Paranormal Encounters series, and I am featured in one of those books. I have one of my experiences with shadow people on that, and Mike has written a book called A Walk in the Shadows, A Complete Guide to Shadow People. We have a lot to, we can go down on many topics with this guest. He's so knowledgeable. I mean, he's been to so many amazing places. I know he's been to Egypt recently. So there's so much to talk about tonight. And, of course, a lot of weird to get to in the World Wide Web of weird, as always. And we will open up the phone lines later in the show for you to call in and join this conversation. Like I said, this will probably be a pretty soupy show because Mike Ricksecker is, like me, into all the different aspects of the paranormal, I think. And we always have a great conversation. So I'm really been looking forward to this show. And, we keep going into 2023. Things keep getting weird. So join us for another weird night tonight. Let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Mike Ricksecker, will be joining us after the World Wide Web Weird, after our first commercial break. If you're joining us just now at the beginning of the show, this is usually our intro, World Wide Web Weird, we're going to have here in a second. But always joining me is my lovely co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you. Really excited to have Mike on. I love when he comes on. And he defines what a soupy guest is. I mean, any rabbit hole, any topic.
He that was his show, was Down the Rabbit Hole. He had on YouTube for a long time. I don't know if he still does that. He's so busy, I don't know. I know he still has his own YouTube segments he does, and he actually does online classes. He's a very busy guy.
And the Mike's
very honored. Yeah, and it's awesome to get him on the show. Joining us, and hopefully everything we didn't get to do sound check with him, is Rob Autry himself. Let's hope he's there. How you doing tonight, Rob?
I'm doing.
I'm glad you made it. I know you had a lot of gigs on Sunday night. I wasn't sure you were going to make it, and you got to work. Okay, we're all set to go. All right, guys. Yeah, we got a lot to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird, so let's go ahead. Here we go. Roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought we'd start off with a couple Bigfoot shenanigans stories. And why I say Bigfoot shenanigans is some people, not Bigfoot, up to shenanigans in the Bigfoot community with some stories. One definitely confirmed shenanigan. We're going to start off with it. And another one, I'll tell you my doubts on this one, but I saw this first one posted around quite a bit when it first came out, and I didn't really, I think we covered it, but I really felt this was going to be found out to be a hoax, and I was right. And the next one is, don't know if it's a hoax or misunderstanding, but we'll get to it. We got a lot of weird to get to, so let's go ahead and get rolling into it. Okay, so first off, let me get the share screen up here. I don't know if you guys remember this one. Alleged Canuck chase Bigfoot photograph exposed as a hoax. I got this from Unexplained Mysteries. And some of you guys might have seen this going around for a while about this being a game camera footage of a Bigfoot capture, and you just see its chest and arms. It looks very real, like this could be something. No way this could be a bear. I remember seeing a lot of people talking about this. Earlier this month, an individual identifying himself as Ronnie wrote to the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization, and they're not on them, man. They just take the information as get it, because I actually love the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization, to submit a photograph that he claimed to have taken in Canuck chase. The image above, which we were looking at here, which is black and white, shows a close-up of what looks like the hair-covered muscular features of a large ape-like creature. Back in August 2015, I saw a Sasquatch, Bigfoot-type creature in the broad daylight in Canuck chase, he wrote. It was roughly about 50 meters away from me. I looked up to about 7-8 feet tall, possibly even taller. Very heavy build, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we don't care. Over the last 7 years, I've been back to Canuck chase many, many times looking for evidence, hoping that I might see it again. Also started setting trail cams several years ago. I was setting trail cams most last year, and I stopped in the winter, and as I hate the cold, he goes on about this. So this is the guy who submitted it, and he has this whole story, and he's not the one who took this. Not everyone, let's get on to the point here, though. Not everyone was convinced by the image, however, especially Cliff Barackman of Finding Bigfoot fame, who noted on Twitter that the photograph looked a lot like a replica model of Bigfoot found at the North American Bigfoot Center, of which he happens to be the curator. By taking a close-up of the photograph of the model and changing it to black and white, he was able to reproduce almost exactly the image submitted to the RMSO. This one, a Bigfoot image, it seems that he has been well and truly debunked. Yeah, I don't know if that debunks it or not. I mean, but I feel like when I first read this story, the fact that guy's like, I didn't get this, but my friend did, and I'm submitting it, and it happened years ago. That just seemed fishy to me. That just seemed fishy to me. I will, for the people who are going to still argue that this thing's real, just because the guy he says it looks like it. I should have had the comparison here. Don't know. Did I? I didn't add the comparison. If you go to Unexplained Mysteries and look at this, they have the comparison up there, and yeah, it is exactly the same. I mean, it really is exactly the same. Like almost the hair, the structure, the feature, the measurements between the shoulder to the muscle, it's exactly the same. So to me, this has been pretty much proven a hoax. So the next one, I might stir some controversy on this because I've seen people arguing on this one on Facebook, and I've seen many people agree with me on what my thoughts are, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're wrong. And this again comes from Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization. I truly love the stuff. There's not a lot of good places to get Bigfoot evidence and stuff presented, and these guys seem to get some of the best. But doesn't mean they're not going to get stuff that's not legit. So experts conclude that the uncompressed Bigfoot captured on Google Earth wasn't there before. So people have spotted this on Google Earth, and they're saying in the previous pictures this wasn't there before. It's estimated to be 7 foot, 5 inch tall figure can be seen seemingly walking in the northwest direction. There's a Fox News article they have attached to this too, but then I get an ad. Hold on, I don't think it'll let me.
It looks like a shadow. Like, would Bigfoot be standing over the top of the whole forest?
I mean, Fox News covered this. My problem is like, people are saying this thing would have to be 100 feet tall. I'm not an expert at reading Google Earth, but I know when you zoom in, there's only so far you can zoom in. This thing would have to be pretty big, wouldn't it? I'm not really asking anyone. I have my feelings on this, and I saw other people start saying the same thing. I'm like, okay, that's how I felt about it.
It looks like an empty void or a shadow.
Somebody said it could be a lake, but then like they said, they went back and it's not there.
Yeah, and it could have been a lake and it dried up.
I've heard that the size, they say that, the size comparison here
So I want to see the one that shows where it wasn't there before to see if it looks like a dried creek bed or if there's still like a void that's not as highlighted.
So according to the poster, when you input the coordinates 38 degrees by 1624 north to 108.0832 west into Google Earth, estimated 7-foot-inch tall figure can be seen seemingly walking. Now, how did they make the 7-foot-inch tall judgment, too? I don't know. I mean, maybe they did. They have a way of knowing.
I mean, is that brush? I just have to see also the topical, to even know.
Would you be able to, if I give you the coordinates, would you be able to quickly pull up Google Earth? I know I'm asking a lot of Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah? Let me see if I can copy and give them to you. Because I maybe we can see for ourselves if I could copy this. Damn it, it won't let me copy just the coordinates. I'm trying to like press down and copy, but it's like wanting to copy everything. Hold on, I almost got it. I don't want too much time on this, damn it. Well, maybe not. I can't get it to copy the coordinates. I'm trying. Well, it's going to copy a lot, I think. I don't know. Hold on, just copy. Oh, well, it's playing with me now. Okay, nope, it's not going to let me copy the coordinates unless you won't try typing them in.
What are they?
38, 1624 north. And then 108.0832 west.
I don't know. I'll work on it.
Okay, maybe we'll look into this, guys, and maybe we'll talk about it again next week. Because actually, you know what? Let's do that. We're going to get this Google Earth thing set up because next week's guest is Patrick Spain, and we're going to actually be talking about him searching for Little Bigfoot in Sumatra. But we're going to be on the topic of Bigfoot, obviously. So next week, maybe let's do that. Let's see if we can get Google Earth working, and I will do that as the first story of the night and see what we see when we look in this. Because this seems too good to be true. Okay, let's move on. All right, so another thing that a lot of times people are very... I have had guests on that feel like these stories aren't legit and people are making stuff up. I don't know. They get all these Chicago O'Hare Batman stories. I don't feel like people would waste... I don't know. I'd like to think better people wouldn't make this stuff up or just giving them false stories. But there's this new one, and it's a long one, and I can't read it all. But you can find it at Singular 14. I do enjoy what they post on there in these stories, and if any of it's true, I don't know. But here's a little bit of it. This is from this guy that submitted. I work for the Chicago Fire Department. I have been stationed at O'Hare International Airport for the last 7 years. This occurred on Thursday, December 29th, about 2300 p.m. at O'Hare Station 3, which is just past Terminal 2. I was in the middle of my shift, and as usual, I would bring my laptop with me to watch movies and play games on. That's so nice to get paid just to play games, right? I was setting up my laptop, and I realized I had left my charging cord in my pickup, so I got up, ran outside to go to grab it, and head back in. As I got my cord, I heard what sounded like chirping sounds, followed what sounded like shuffling coming from nearby. I looked around, and that's when I heard the clicking coming from across the street. I looked up, and standing on the edge of the HVAC plant was a very tall, thin, human-like creature with huge wings that spread out. This creature was looking directly at me with a pair of large red eyes that had intensity of a pair of tail lights or one of the lights on an engine. It just stood there and looked at me and made this rapid clicking sound. I was in complete shock at what I was seeing and just how large this creature was and how enormous its wings were. They had to be close to 15 feet from tip to tip, and it had to be at least 7 feet in height. The body was thin, and its limbs were very thin and long. They looked like they would be unable to support such a tall body, but apparently looks can be deceiving from what I was looking at. We stared at each other for about 6 to 7 seconds before this thing flapped its wings and silently took off in the air, and within a few seconds it disappeared, and I stood out there for at least a minute before coming to my senses and realizing I should get inside. Now, the rest of the article goes on about him explaining he didn't know anything about the O'Hare Batman, and then he finds out from other workers they've seen something similar. Has these weird experiences, and we've heard of the O'Hare in Chicago Batman like this. And the clicking sounds is, that'd be radar. It'd be the bats make clicking sounds. This seems very detailed. I don't know. I mean, I want to give credibility because he's a firefighter, wanting to say that. Is it true? Any of it true? I mean, we don't have any. All we have is the stories, and they keep happening. I mean, I'm not asking that people are going to get photographic or video evidence of this. This thing's happening. So 7 seconds is what this guy said. I don't care if you had a cell phone. You're not getting it out. You're shocked. And nobody's getting evidence of this. I don't know. What does it mean? All mean? This keeps happening. You know, the Mothman thing and that kind of story is always like it's going to spell tragedy or doom for something to happen. Well, this has been happening now for quite a while, many years now. So I don't know what that means. I don't know. We got its own kind of portal there. We had the whole UFO thing over you, O'Hara.
Do we know if the people who have had these sightings like this have had anything bad happen to them later on?
I don't know. I haven't. Yeah, like psychic activity or like the kind of the Mothman, John Kelly
Or some
kind of
sort of doom?
descriptions.
Like,
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know because it'd be a comparison to what happened with Mothman. You know, I don't know. But we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, with Mike Ricksecker tonight. Is places that are, you know, hot spots like, you know, the Skinwalker Ranch and sightings of creatures and weird things like this. You know, maybe that's what's going on at O'Hare because they did have the whole UFO over O'Hare Airport. It's infamous now. To me, is pretty undeniable that it happened. All right, we'll move on. All right. Here we go. All right, this is the next one. All right, from Unexplained Mysteries again, because they had the shorter versions of the longer articles. I think this was originally covered on Unlaid was the website, but they have the shorter articles on this. We've talked about this head plant surgeon. This guy was I talked about this a couple years ago about them. I think guy's Russian. Doing an actual human head transplant, and we've kind of covered over the years. So now he's got some new stuff he wants to try. Mad scientist here. There can be few surgical procedures as horrific in concept as removing someone's head and then attaching it to another body. Yet back in 2015, neurosurgeon Sergio Canavero made headlines news after announcing plans to perform such a procedure on Valev Sprindadov, a Russian programmer who had been suffering from spinal muscular atrophy. The endeavor attracted a huge amount of controversy and condemnation from the medical community, with most doctors arguing that such a procedure would be a fate worse than death for the patient. While ultimately the surgery did not go ahead, Canero never gave up on the idea, and now, writing in a new paper, he maintains that the best solution to many of the life's incurable ills, such as aging, might be literally to transplant the brain into someone's body to another. Such a procedure would involve removing the brain from the skull with a robotic scoop with a retractable tines and then placing it into the empty skull of a donor body. The recipient would need to be immune suppressed or ideally a clone of the donor's body. That's where we're going with this. If all this sounds a bit Frankenstein monster, then that's because it is. There's currently no possible way to conduct a procedure like this. It would be even more difficult than transplanting a head. Yes, and yes. But this guy's really pushing, like, he's watched a lot of sci-fi. He might be a neurosurgeon, but he's in love with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and he's in love with some sci-fi. Like, this guy, he's digging all those sci-fi. I know he's got a collection. He just has an obsession, obviously, with this. I mean, literally, you know, they said there was a Russian he was going to try to do. His poor soul actually passed away. That he was going to try to do this head transplant. He had to go to Russia to get permission to do it. He had to go to some they weren't going to allow it here.
Like Reanimator.
Yeah, Reanimator. You know, he's really into that stuff, I think. I just don't see. I do see this as a future thing, though. I'll agree with this scientist that everybody's like, oh no, give 100 years, 200 years, who knows?
It's alive.
You remember what Free Jack? They like steal people from time so they can use the body, put the brain in, or something like that. I don't know. I could see our brains ending up in jars and some virtual Matrix stuff. You know, I think that's a possibility.
Where did you get this?
Yeah, where'd you get the body? With it's got some.
It's from Abby.
Jeez.
Abby who? Normal.
Jeez. All right, let's move on before we run out of time here. All right. This one here we got. Oh wait a second. I don't have the sound clip, do I? I don't have the. Do I? Do I have? Wait. Oh no. Like one of my favorite sound clips. Oh, no, I don't have it anymore. I should have had a perfect sound clip. It was just, they took our jobs! Because this next one is, AI will take 20% of our jobs within 5 years. Experts explain how bot-like chat GPTs will dominate the labor market. You know, we talked about, I'm not going to get into this whole article. You can read it from the Daily Mail. We don't have time. But it really gets into how chatbots and all these other AI can take over a lot of customer service over the phone, internet, online stuff. They're just not going to need people for these jobs anymore. Even to hound you for your bills, or, you know, they'll call you. AI will call you and start talking to you. You won't even know it's AI. Took our jobs! There it is. But they're coming for you, McDonald's workers. I mean, McDonald's is. I already announced on. I had covered on the show that McDonald's is going to actually is working on phasing out a lot of positions and replacing basically all the the counter people. Basically, like you just tell them what you want on the screen, and eventually they'll just automate all that too. You don't have to worry about somebody messing up your order anymore. It's going to be a robot, and you have to blame the robot or the programmer. They're cheaper. They can work 24/7. We might get our dollar menu back. Nah, that ain't happening. Inflation, buddy. Yeah.
I don't want dollar chicken nuggets.
Yeah, you don't want dollar chicken. You don't want anything for McDonald's, to be honest. But the good jibs. That's what's happening. The future. What do we do? How do we? Remember in Star Wars, everybody's like really crappy to the droids. Everybody's really crap. Like, those droids aren't allowed in here. You know why all those Star Wars people in the galaxy far, far away are so crappy to droids and treat them like crap? Because they took their jobs. You know what I'm saying? You notice how poor everybody seems like in all these planets?
Yep.
That's why they
had the robotic bartenders like in Vegas for a while.
Right. Took our jeeps. That's what I'm saying. Like, I've always thought that in Star Wars, this is why they're crappy to all these droids. They took their jobs. They took our jobs. But what do you do? How do you stop innovation? How do you stop AI? It's like why we have so many Terminator sequels. You just don't stop AI. They just get a time machine, go back and change what you went back in time and change, and it's happening. You're never going to stop Skynet. Nope, Skynet's inevitable. Battlestar Galactica, AI takeover is inevitable. I'm sorry,
really
sci-fi
is.
geeking out, but I'm just saying, like, what do we do? I mean, you can't. The cat's out of the bag.
Sending DNA to Mars. They're going to have like planted memories and all this false stuff put into.
All right, we got to move on though, because I got 2 articles left, and I might even skip over the 6th one just to get to the. This one here, number 6, really quick. Republican lawmaker accuses government of UFO cover up. Boy, welcome to the party, pal. Representative Tim Burchett, if that's how you say his name, maintains that the Pentagon is deliberately withholding important information on this topic. Really? You think they are?
No.
Despite the month's release of declassified 11-page report by the Office of Direct National Intelligence on UFO investigated by the Pentagon in 2022, Burchett, if that's how you say his name, believes that there is still a concerted effort to withhold critical information pertaining to the UFO phenomenon. This thing is a huge cover-up for whatever reason, he told News Nation. And this would it. Next he says, and I just feel like America's ready. We need to know and stop with all the shenanigans. You don't need to know the truth. That's what they'll tell you, buddy. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they don't care what you say. But maybe if we get more representatives calling for this, we'll get some more information. I doubt it. But you want to talk about cover up. I want to get to this last one because we've been covering this kind of story, and I saw this article from Gizmodo this week because I've covered this story, and it pissed me off when I covered it before, and it still pisses me off. Is from Gizmodo, the enduring mystery of an aggressive FBI raid near Area 51. Now, you remember me talking about Jorge Arnu, I think that's how you say his name. His place in Nevada in last November was raided by the FBI. They took like every electronic he had, iPads, cameras, drones, computers, all of his files, like his tax records are all on his computer. He can't even get those. He still does not have it back. We're talking like $30,000-$40,000 of equipment.
He's never getting it back.
And he's still not been charged with a crime. He has still not been, it's been November. He can't get it back, and he's not been charged with a crime. How do we allow this in this country? Yep. He did nothing wrong. If he did, let's have the charge.
Legal
Let's
robbery.
say he took one of those drones, went over restricted area with him. He says he didn't. But if he did and you have proof of it, fine, charge him. Let's go to court.
Doesn't matter anymore.
When people say, you get rid of the FBI, more and more I'm right there. I do think there are good people in the FBI. There are people that want to serve this country, protect this country, and there are threats to this country. But obviously, there is a deep-seated corruption, and they are the tool of the military industrial complex for sure on this one. They're hiding for our black ops projects or whatever. Or whatever. This is a way to threaten the UFO community is what it really is all about. They want us to see this article. They want me to talk about it. They want you to be scared, not to dig any further. And dear God, you better not look too close or do what this guy did. You better not get drones and survey the area. Even though don't go to restricted areas. You better not research even on you Area 51. You don't want the FBI listening on you or raiding your home for no freaking reason and never even charging you with a crime, but taking all your stuff.
Do not speak of it.
Don't tell me this isn't about intimidation of a community. Seriously, when I've heard that he's still not even charged with a crime, how does this happen? How can somebody literally be robbed? He's robbed, okay? This stuff is probably never coming back to him, affecting his life tremendously. And you can't even charge him with a crime or tell him what he did wrong. You raided his home, put guns in his face, took him out of his house in his underwear. Are we just all right with a Gestapo in this country? Are we all right with our government, our taxpayer-funded money being used against us all the time and used to deceive? And, I'm just over it with the FBI. I am over it. This story really, look at what they did with the guys who found, Civil War gold. Look into that story, how they screwed them over. We have some deep problems in our bureaucracy of our government, our DOJ, our FBI, and whatever's going on with the UFOs. Whatever's going on in this UFO thing. That's why I've laughed at the whole disclosure movement this whole time. And I also angry because, yeah, sure, your disclosure. Kiss my you-know-what. This is no disclosure. This is a shill of a show. And this proves it when you're treating an American citizen like this. And you can't even charge him with a crime. That's it. Off my high horse. I'm sorry. I told you last time I talked about this story, it pissed me off. And then I read this article this week by Gizmodo, and thank you for covering it, Gizmodo, because we gotta start not putting up with this crap. And watch me get shut down on YouTube for this or something, but I don't care. This is ridiculous. People need to start not putting up with this stuff from our government anymore. But that's it. Our guest tonight, excellent guest. Cannot wait to talk to him. Is Mike Ricksecker. He's the author of many books. One of them, A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people. And he's also been featured on Gaia TV and Ancient Aliens. Wish I had the new season of Ancient Aliens. I haven't got to see him, so I want to see Mike on Ancient Aliens. But we got a lot we're going to probably get into with this guest tonight, and we will open up the phone lines later in the show. So just hang in there if you want to call in and join the conversation. We will do that a little bit later. I'll get the phone lines out. All right, guys, we'll be right back after a short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday at the live stream with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
encounters of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping, Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Mike Ricksecker. Mike is the author of Amazon's best-selling A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people. Also, the historic tome, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, and 8 historic paranormal books. He has appeared on multiple television shows and programs, including History Channel's Ancient Aliens and The Unexplained, Travel Channel's Alaska's Triangle, Discovery's Plus Fright Club, Animal Planet's The Haunted, multiple series on Gaia TV, and more. Mike is a producer and director of the docuseries The Shadow Dimension, available on several streaming platforms, and produces additional full-length content on ancient wisdom, lost civilizations, and the supernatural on his extensive YouTube channel. For more than 6 years, he's hosted the Edge of the Rabbit Hole live stream show and currently hosts the Connecting the Universe interactive class. He operates his own book publishing and video production company, Haunted Road Media, representing a number of authors and the winning award of excellence excellent media in the paranormal field in the 2019 Shockfest Film Festival. Mike's historic paranormal articles have been published in the Baltimore Sun, Paranormal Underground magazine, and he previously wrote for the Oklahoma City Paranormal column for the Examiner.com from 2010 to 2014. His work has also been featured in the Oklahoman Frederick News Post, Marshall University, the Pantheon, the Louisiana State University Civil War Book Review. He now hosts many of these articles along with informational videos and leading courses on the Connected Universe Portal website. Native of Cleveland, Ohio, Mike is a U.S. Air Force veteran with a degree in simulation programming and is an avid baseball fan. Mike is awesome. I cannot wait to talk to him. We got him waiting here in the guest room. But if any hasn't heard me talk about Mike before, I've mentioned him a number of times. One of my biggest paranormal experience was a shadow person experience, which Mike was kindly enough to feature in one of his books. I believe is Paranormal Encounters Volume 2. You can find that in there. I always enjoy having Mike on. There's going to be a lot to get to. And like I said, phone lines will be open later in the show. So let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, let's bring him on. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Hey, Jason, doing pretty well. And hi, Jamie, how you doing?
She was very excited to have you come back on the show. So am I. It is an honor to have you back on. It's been a while. Yeah. You've been a very, very, very busy person those years.
A
little bit. So, I don't know. I mean, I gave the background, but I don't know if there's anything else you kind of wanted to introduce yourself to the audience tonight. So for some people who haven't seen you before on the show, but if you don't know who Mike Ricksecker is, I don't know where you've been.
But I don't know what else you want me to say. I mean,
I know. It's pretty long
bio. Yeah, I know. There's some stuff there.
Yeah, well, I feel sad though because it's on my list of books to get is your Walk in the Shadows. Okay. I have books for my wife Christmas, birthday. I get one. I don't know. I have too many I put on there for her, so it's not her fault. But yours is one of the ones on the list I want to get. I'm just gonna have to go out and buy it. After my birthday is coming up in a couple months, but still, I might just say, and she goes, "Oh, you just buy all the stuff before I can buy it for you." I need to just buy it because I want to read that. Buy it. Yeah, definitely. Because you obviously read my shadow person experience. I know you probably have a lot you want to get into tonight, but I did want to kind of start off with this on shadow people since that's kind of how we connected.
Oh, you're done throwing down about disclosure?
Oh, God. You want to get into that tonight? I don't know.
We can go ahead and start with the shadow stuff, but you included your story in one of the Encounters with the Paranormal books, and I think it was the longest story in that book. It was quite an extensive experience.
Yeah. That's the reason I do this show. It's just because it was so traumatic. All the paranormal things I've experienced, and I've had a lot of weird experiences. This is the one I was dangerous. This is the one that I felt like almost would drive me to the brink. And I've met other people that had shadow person experiences. I wouldn't say are just spirits. It does see something like mine, but theirs isn't as negative or it's different, But I've had others that are, just as negative and it's bad. I don't know to this day what it is. I have theories and all that. But my question is, you wrote this book. It's it's an Amazon bestseller. And my story being included in your book, how many people after writing these things and on shadow people have contacted you about their experiences?
Yeah,
I bet.
A lot of people have, and that's been really the amazing thing. And when you do read the book, you'll find that I included a number of those stories in there because people were coming because I would give presentations about the topic at conferences, and afterward people would come to my table and we'd have a discussion about their experience, and that's kind of just multiplied a number of times here after the book has been published, and there is really a very, very large variety of different stories, which leads me to say that what we're dealing with here are a lot of different types of entities, because I usually get asked the question, okay, what's a shadow person? And it's like, well, that opens a whole can of worms because they can be a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it gets so confusing when you get into the topic of shadow people, is that people have paranormal experiences, and let's say a haunted home, and a spirit can appear to you as a shadow, and it can do it repeatedly. And is that a shadow person experience? Well, I don't know. Like mine, I wouldn't live in a haunted house. This is something that followed me, and two other people, and I've met others and heard people have had experiences of like picking these things up. Like, it's like we have to like take what's happened. What are the incidents that have happened to somebody in these experiences and like try to, okay, this seems like a haunting issue. And this seems like something out of that realm. It's different.
Yeah, you have to take each case individually. So some of these are just, human spirits that can't fully manifest as an apparition. You have others that are interdimensional beings. Some are ETs. Some may be, like some form of light being or an astral projection or something like that. And so you have to really look at each case individually.
The astral projection thing is interesting too, and another aspect I've always been interested in with shadow people. But you brought up ETs.
Yeah.
Since I wrote that story, I wrote out this is the first time I wrote out that experience completely, and I did it in a couple nights. Okay, I'm gonna just write this out. I'm gonna get this out. I gotta write it down. Like scared of it.
I read that and I was like, this must have been really cathartic for Jason.
It was like a big release.
Yeah.
Then it got me to start thinking about it. And I don't know if you're familiar with Terry Lovelace.
Yeah. I've had him on the show before.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. And one of the first times, when I was getting in the first time, Heather Wade had set me up. She's like, I got this friend Terry. You should come on your show. He's excellent. Thank you, Heather, because he's a good friend now too.
Good.
I read his book before he came on the show, Incident at Devil's Den. And it brought up a lot of stuff I'd never looked at in my own experience camping, which happened a few months before with one of the same individuals that had the whole shadow person experience. I had a weird, what could have been an abduction experience in the woods, and I would not look at it. Me and you, we're both into the paranormal. I've had all these experiences, and I've never looked away from those. I've talked about those, but it's like my brain was wired not to look at this experience until Incident at Devil's Den brought flashes of it back to me. Like, oh wait, I was camping in Red River Gorge with the same guy was haunted by this same shadow being, and we had an experience, or at least I did. I don't know if he did, but there was some weirdness going on. And so I want to thank you, because I think part of that wouldn't have came out or came back to me until I looked back at that, because the shadow person experience is like that. I couldn't deny it happened to me. Too many physical things happened to deny it, or not look at it or remember it, like this camping incident. But I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to think about it, even though I would, my curiosity. But there's always the fear. That's the one thing I fear of all my paranormal experiences. But writing it out was like a huge way to get me to get back to it, to look at actually what happened. So thank you for giving me that opportunity too.
Absolutely. And I think when we, with a lot of the experiences that we've had, whether it was, an ET experience, a shadow experience, seeing a ghost or an apparition, whatever it is, I think a lot of times, our mind does things to protect us. And so I think a lot of times when we have these experiences, it gets compartmentalized somewhere in our brain. And it takes other things, other experiences throughout our life to be able to trigger that. And, it's interesting. I just, it has not yet aired yet for Ancient Aliens, but will later this season when we start talking about some other incidents of UFO encounters. Kurt Russell, he was there for the Phoenix Lights.
Yes.
Yeah,
he was on a
really
plane.
Fascinating. Yeah, he was on a plane. He reported it, but he completely spaced the whole thing until he walks into the room years later, and Goldie's sitting there on the couch watching a television show about the Phoenix Lights, and it hits him. He's like, and it wasn't immediate. He's looking at it, like, that's familiar. Why is that so familiar? And he kept watching more of the show with her, and it just hit him finally. Like, oh my gosh.
That's a perfect example.
Me. Yeah. So, but it's happening to me too,
I'm a little freaked out about talking about shadow people right now, because behind me I have my laundry room. Yeah, I don't have a fancy studio, people. I'm in my basement. I have this laundry room, and right now there is a light going disco in there. I guess it's about ready to go out, but it happened as soon as we bring up shadow people. This is why I don't. This is one thing that always freaks me out, and it's not helping that the light's totally going on and off right now in there. Okay, back.
So, but and I've had that happen too, where, an incident. It was a consistent incident, so it wasn't really an incident. It was just over time in Alaska that happened. When I was quite young, and several of us were experiencing it, but I'd completely put it out of my mind until the Alaska Triangle show came along, and I was invited to partake in some of those episodes and discuss activity there in Alaska, and it just hit me like, oh my gosh, I actually did experience shadow activity in Alaska as well.
Really?
Yeah, and there were several of us that did. It was in the basement of the Alaska Command Building. And so there was this, and again, just put out of my mind for, 25 years.
Wow.
And yeah.
This is when you were in the Air Force?
This is when I was in the Air Force, yeah.
Yeah.
People would talk about, the building used to be a hospital. And so those are we're in the morgue area, and those are the spirits of the people that had died. And so when I started writing the book, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, I was like, okay, well, let me make sure I get, the full history of the building. Right. So I have all the facts and everything. It was never used as a hospital. So we were not in a morgue. So then it's like, okay, what in the world were we experiencing down there? Because it was something many of us saw. It was going on the entire time that I worked there. You had to kind of speak about it in hushed whispers. Of course. Because if you start talking about it too much, then you'd find yourself down at mental health. So yeah, what I believe it was, and there's no way for me to go back and try to figure it out, because they're not going to let us do an investigation down there in the building. Although I wish I would have done some more follow-up while I was there. I think it was some sort of time slip, with all the energy that's there in the area. Maybe we were seeing personnel from the past, or maybe in the future.
Right.
Or
it's
maybe
always,
even
that could be a
ourselves.
possibility. Like, it's not totally manifesting, but it's like impressions or images slightly manifesting, maybe. One of the things, the reason, I started connecting the shadow people to more this incident that happened which was kind of like an abduction experience I had in Red River Gorge, is that from Terry I learned from some other abductees that I've had on the show, I've had shadow person experiences. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I'm an abductee. I'm not like Terry. I didn't have an incident like he did that was so traumatic, physically and mentally at all, and continually. Not just the incident at Devil's Den. He's had plenty even before then. But it seems to be something that happens to people and they don't like to talk about it. It's hard enough to tell people I've been abducted by aliens. Now we're going to get into I'm having psychokinetic things happen in my house, shadow people and figures moving around. Again, I do this show and I call it Paranormal Soup because I believe all these things are connected in some way, and it just makes me wonder if shadow people, some of them, now, of course, like we said, there's other things going on here, but some of these incidents could be ET related.
Absolutely. I was just talking with a gentleman yesterday, and there was, I think he said it lasted for about a year. There was a UFO flap that was going on near his home, and were consistently seeing the different lights and everything. Yeah. And there was one particular evening where he did have a shadow person experience in the home, and he ended up, leaving the house because he thought, maybe one of the ETs had come into the home, thinking that this might be an extraterrestrial, and they very well could be. They could be. And there's a couple different ways this may manifest, and if it is some sort of physical craft, and an ET has come down to, check out the home, look at humanity. I mean, what would we do if we went to another planet? We would be, watching, observing, taking in data, that sort of thing. But we might not want to be seen. So they could be utilizing some sort of cloaking device.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, but not fully understanding the physiology of our eyes. They might be thinking they're invisible to us, and we're seeing
certain
them
people
actually
can
as
see
a shadow.
it.
Yeah,
certain people might be able to see it. I mean, I'm a Star Trek: The Next Generation fan, I'm a Star Trek fan, but TNG especially. But in that, there's a episode where they are observing like a planet, and Data has like an invisibility suit.
Oh, okay.
No, that was from the movie. There was one where they had the whole structure. But the movie there was a movie that was in the movie later on. I think Insurrection, maybe. Yeah, they had like an invisibility suit that he's like walking around in, so he could like go out and observe this civilization, whatever, and that made me, when I first saw that, I made me think of my shadow person experience. That later on, I would say I would think about it as like, is that what this is? Being observed by aliens, and we're just seeing like a shadow form. I mean, even people who say that this is like they're haunted by the living, that this is somebody haunting them that's astrally. Who's to say aliens can't, if they're technologically advanced or spiritually advanced, that they could project themselves, or that is some kind of like astral projection of them. I mean,
absolutely.
So many weird things to deal with here.
Yeah, we're talking about advanced civilizations that are potentially millions of years ahead of us, and we have people today in our society that know how to astral project. So what does that look like if you astral project into somebody's room? Does that come off as a shadow? Some people talk about seeing like a shimmer type person. Does it look like that? And so if you have some civilization out there that routinely practices astral projection, maybe they're projecting themselves across the cosmos, light years away, and don't even have a craft parked on the planet or in orbit or whatever. They just might be in another solar system, millions
I think
of light years
when
away.
I wrote my story, I described it as like an alien-like thing to me, the shadow person. At the time, I think I was trying to touch upon what I later on, after reading Terry's book, really start to feel. But, Whitley Strieber wrote a fictional book called Majestic that I really like. But one of the things I think the reason I really like that book is there's a scene in the book. Like I said, it's fiction about Roswell, basically what happened at Roswell. But there's a scene where the gray alien is on top of the main character and touches him and gets inside his head. And the way it describes the way it knows down to the kernel everything about them, the description Whitley gave, I remember getting chills because that's how it felt with this shadow person on top of me.
Okay.
And so it's like little pieces of my mind were trying to maybe piece this together, and like I said, Terry's book Instant at Devil's Den, and then just our private conversations talking about our experiences really started to pull these things together. So I'm now with the shadow person going down, is this alien related? I still don't know. I'm still without any answers. So I got to get your
possible.
book. I want to read these other stories and other people's experiences. That's the best way. That's why I do the show, people to share these experiences. So I love that you wrote a book on this and got people's. Are you still getting? Obviously you're still getting shadow person stories from people. I think you continue. I mean, look, Art Bell was getting a ton of these calls back in the '90s when people started talking about this. A ton of people would call up about shadow people.
Right.
So obviously this is a major phenomenon and experience lots of people are having, and a lot of people probably want to talk about it. I know I didn't want to talk about it for a long, long time.
Yeah, and that's the fascinating thing is these days people are more open to talking about it. Where shadow phenomena has been going on for thousands of years. You look back into cultures all over the world. They might have some legend and lore around it, but they've all been having this experience for since the beginning of time, and they just reported it a little bit differently. So you had a period of time in, I guess, our modern culture in which it was taboo to talk about it. Now, back during the 1800s, spiritualism movement, they were readily talking about it. But then it seems like somewhere around World War II, they kind of put the kibosh on it all. And for several decades, if you're talking about that, you were a nutter and you're going to be, tossed away somewhere in a straitjacket. But over the past couple of decades here, kind of with the proliferation of the internet, people coming together, having these conversations, and then the television shows coming out, people started realizing, wait a minute, I am not the only person to have had this experience.
Right.
Other people have had these experiences too. So they've started to come out more and talk about these different things, which is good.
It's a snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's like once people start hearing one person and then another person and then another person talk about it, they feel more at ease that I'm not so alone or crazy. I can talk about this. And it goes for shadow people, UFOs, Bigfoot, all these experiences. This is why we have to do these shows, why you have to write the books you do and do all these television shows is to get, I praise any of them to do it. Get the word out. Let people know there's something going on, and to just feel comfortable enough to share their experience. We're not going to understand what's going on until we all start sharing notes here,
Absolutely.
And maybe we still won't, but I don't know. It's such a weird, crazy experience. I don't know. And I've had a lot of weird experiences, but the shadow person one still, it could be this, it could be that. I don't know. I question all of it.
There's a lot of different possibilities, yeah. And that is one of the things when people buy the book, they are looking for, one straight, this is what it is. But that's not the way the book reads. Basically, I lay out all these different possibilities, and really only you can decide what you may have experienced, or you may still have a bunch of questions and not know, but at least you might. I trying to keep an open mind about it. Because a lot of people think that, oh, it's shadowy, so it must be evil and nefarious, or it's a demon or something. It's
Demon.
Yeah. No, because there are actually a lot of benevolent stories about shadow entities.
That's what I'm saying. Mine was not benevolent. My when somebody says it's a demon, I'm like, well, yeah, it acted like one, but I still felt I don't like. I'm not a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ, but I don't believe in the organized religion or the Bible. I have a whole other set of ideas about Jesus Christ and history and all that. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I do believe in God and I believe in the possibility of demons. But still, there's something about me that says no, look further than just naming this thing as a demon. I'm not just going to quantify it as a demon. I don't know what this was.
There's nasty and nefarious human spirits too.
Yeah,
so
that's
true. Because when people pass away, they don't usually just suddenly,
they're still an a-hole.
They're
an a-hole. They're still an a-hole.
Oh, I'm dead now. I'm going to be, good and float away on a cloud. No, usually it's if you're a jerk in life, usually you're a jerk in death too. So.
And it makes you wonder what happens to some of these really evil, wicked people. Like, do they? If there is no hell, then and if there is still souls, what happens to the ghost of a serial killer? Is a scary idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole other topic. Now, you mentioned UFO disclosure. What are your thoughts? You heard my so kind of pessimistic.
Well, they had the new UAP report just come out here, and it's like, okay, most of it was just organization stuff. We've established Arrow, we did away with the other. It's just reorganizing stuff. That
bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly. They put some numbers out there. Again, disappointing that they've left it all to the military. They didn't include any civilian numbers. The one thing I will say is that since some of those numbers have increased, it does seem like our military personnel are becoming a little bit more comfortable.
I'll say something.
This.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's been the signal. Everybody except for the what is it? The Air Force? Is that the one that's like, no, we're not going to do anything? I think it was the Air Force.
They're the ones
right?
back in the day that did most everything. It was them and the Navy a little bit. So maybe they got tired of doing it. But here's the thing: is I think the government has decided we have to put a little bit of something out there, because we can't just
keep ignoring
deny everything anymore. No, because we have too much technology. The common person has too much technology in their hands now that they see something in the sky and they're able to take out their cell phone and get a 4K video of it.
Yep.
So they can't just flat deny everything anymore. So now they're trying to give the illusion of, okay, well, we'll go ahead and we'll put together this organization.
We have our best men on it.
Yeah, we have our best men on it. And they still try to pawn it off in their literature that, we need to make sure this isn't the enemy in our airspace. It's like, if there's an enemy hiding in our airspace like that,
we're screwed.
We have a lot more problems than just thinking it might be.
You better hope it's aliens that are benevolent.
Yeah,
not China or Russia. We're really screwed. I just don't buy that. Like you're talking free energy. You're talking like destroying physics as we know it with what we've seen so far from a lot of this footage coming from the military.
Already be toast by now, if that was the case. So I don't buy any of that.
Me neither. I mean, I think there is a lot. I mean, again, when I said, when they had the hearings and they're showing the footage, I called it a year before. I said, they're going to show, I actually showed the footage. Where was it? It was the night vision footage of the glowing triangle.
Right.
A year ago when I said, that is an iris optical illusion. I said, so this is explainable. I go, watch it a year from now. Mm-hmm. When they do this hearing, they're going to be doing this hearing, it's supposed to be a year from now. They're going to show this.
Yeah, and the other one
say, look, it's explainable. Yeah,
and the other one,
and that's exactly what they did.
Said couldn't be explained. It's like it was going by so fast. It's like
could have been a balloon.
Thousands of other clips that you could have chosen.
Yes, that was my point.
One. Yeah,
they picked the most garbage things, like the one that could totally be explained, and then one that we can't explain, but is total garbage. Right. Like when why didn't I see like the Nimitz footage up in those hearings? I'm saying, why were they showing that?
Yeah,
What about
and
the
Mike
Tic Tac?
Gallagher became my new favorite congressman. We called him out on Maelstrom, and they're like, "Oh,
Oh
I don't know."
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
how could
exactly.
you not know? He was like, "You
Yeah,
have to at least have
yeah.
heard
I
of
said
it
I covered
if
that
you're
on the
heading this
show.
organization." Yeah.
I was like, that is, yeah, that should be number one priority. If they shut down our nuclear weapons,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a
that's a
big
big
issue.
problem. That's a big problem. You know, and that's not the only place that's happened
Right.
at. You know, and not the only country that's happened to. I've heard reports of it happening to submarines,
Oh, sure.
underwater
Yeah.
USOs. I mean, I was just talking about this with a coworker today about the interest of aliens and our nuclear nuclear power plants, nuclear powered ships. We're talking about ancient aliens and the nuclear, evidence that there was nuclear Armageddon before human civilization as we know it. That there is something when we had launched the first Hiroshima. When we did the first bomb, actually we tested before then. So we woke somebody up to our that we need to pay attention to these humans.
Yeah.
That's the feeling. That's what you see. You see a lot more UFO sightings after the experimentation with nuclear
Shockwave
weapons.
heard around the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh no, what are the humans doing? Because it's horrible. I want to see that Oppenheimer movie that's coming out.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Because man, I mean, again, I don't know if you heard any of my World Wide Web of Weird. I talked about, I had an article from Daily Mail about AI taking 20% of our jobs. Mainly, they're talking about taking a lot of the human like the telephone marketing jobs. And,
I saw the one the other day about Chat GPT writing
yeah,
resumes.
Chat GPT. Yeah, that stuff. All these things that AI could take our jobs. And my point was, well, this is like the atomic bomb. This is technology. We can't stop it. There's no way to stop the progression. I mean, there's been 5 Terminator movies. AI just keeps winning.
It's
saying,
yeah.
it's like you can't stop it. I'm a big fan of sci-fi. Battlestar Galactica, I think, also kind of pointed out that same thing. Like, no matter what we do, the beginning is the end is the beginning. We're going to end up at the same thing.
Oh, it's a constant cycle, absolutely. And you're not going to stop that. Humans have we have a natural curiosity, but we have this propensity to take it to like the nth degree. So you have scientists that are admitting now that we want to create consciousness, not just AI, but actual consciousness. Yeah. So that takes you into, I don't know if you watched the Westworld television show and and how that which was absolutely fascinating. So it's like, okay, so but it makes you ask, okay, what exactly is consciousness? Can they actually create that? And then you get into the whole, okay, then at what point does the creation decide to overthrow
like every sci-fi movie it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Word of warning,
Yeah.
It's not a game plan to, a blueprint. I always say this though, like China named one of their social credit score systems Skynet. I'm like, Terminator's not a blueprint for what to do. It's for what not to do. It's like we know the problems. It's been written out in sci-fi, but we're going to do it anyways, guys.
We see the warnings all the time in sci-fi, and nobody listens. They just think, oh, it's entertainment. And it's like, no, it's actually a warning.
Right.
And we do it anyway because a lot of the ideas in there, you get somebody with a little bit of know-how. It's like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Let me see if I can do it. And then they do it.
Yeah, that's pretty much that'll be the gravestone for Earth. Let's see if we can do it. Oh, we're dead. Like whatever it is that we're going to end up doing.
Yeah. Well,
just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the humans race's like lesson we need to learn, but I don't think we ever will.
Like the creating the wormholes in the lab and all that. So the whole planet's going to get sucked down a wormhole somewhere.
So
make portals, throw it out there.
There you go.
You've been doing the Ancient Aliens, episodes lately. I have to wait for Ancient Aliens. Like I'm always a season behind because I always like subscribe to something that has it, but you get it after the seasons come out. So,
right.
But I've been watching Ancient Aliens from the beginning. Love the show, and I read when I was 10 years old Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the God. My mom had a hardback copy of it. I'm like, what's this? Nice. And was because she was. We would talk. I grew up in a household where parents were not religious, and we'd talk about things like this. So I've been an Ancient Aliens believer before the show.
Good.
If anything, I believe where least civilization has been, we've had previous civilizations like Atlantis and Luminaria that have existed that were technologically highly advanced and are gone. Remember the show Life After People? Remember they had that one on History Channel? How things would just,
I
if
never
people
saw that one.
disappeared, how quickly things would just disappear.
Yeah. Oh,
You know?
absolutely. Yeah. And
You know.
people don't realize that. They're wondering, okay, where's the evidence of the machines? And it's like, the metal breaks down and rusts and degrades. All you end up left with is the stone. Just even going to. I'm about to go back to Egypt here. And,
Yeah, that's what I was hoping we get into this.
Yeah, definitely. So, the way that they cut those blocks, within not just the pyramids, but a lot of the architecture there is made out of granite and is beautifully done, and you can see that it's been machined. Well, traditional archaeology says, well, they had stone tools and they used copper,
Right.
and it's like, well, stone and copper is not going to perfectly cut granite. And you're looking at it, it's like you have this beautiful lintel that came down off the Valley Temple. It's just sitting there in the ground. I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, if it was a piece of wood and I was trying to do the trim in my house, I would take that trim across a router. Okay, but this is a massive piece of granite.
Yeah.
So you scratching your head, how did they do that? So we were in the Cairo Museum, and it was like our last day a year and a half ago for our tour then. And there is a fantastic sarcophagus there, again, made of granite, in which you can see that they were cutting the lid for the sarcophagus off the bottom. So basically they're going to cut it off the bottom and then, make it so it fits on the top. Okay. But they stopped halfway through the cut. And if you look in there, just take a little flashlight and you look through this, basically it's like a line that goes across, or you look down the cut, you can see within there the circular pattern of saws, and it had been one on top of another going down. We don't know why they stopped, but they stopped right there.
Yeah, but it's evidence of the tool.
It's evidence of the tool that they used saws, which they were not supposed to have. So I'm taking photos of this. I take this back to my father, who, for 40 some odd years was a machinist. He was a tool and die maker by trade.
Wow.
This was his forte.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, Dad, I was like, okay, this is sarcophagus at, in Cairo. What do you make of this? And he's looking at us like, well, it's granite. I'm like, yeah. And it's like, well, tell me about the cut. And he's like, well, a couple of saws. Yeah. And I'm like, and I ask him, what kind of saws would cut that? And he's like, well, diamond tip saw.
Yep.
Which they were not supposed to have.
Yeah.
So then people are like, okay, well, where's the evidence? Well, I mean, again, metal, it's going to degrade over thousands of years. So that stuff is not
That
going
tool's
to
gone.
exist. The tool is gone. But the evidence that the tooling was done is there because we see it in the stone.
It's also like, I always like the episode in Ancient Aliens where they talk about the lights and the Baghdad battery. How did they light so deep inside these tombs where oxygen levels are too low for torches?
Right.
And then you have these hieroglyphs showing what looks like a light bulb, which I love how they did. Like, the people have done like kind of like
Dendara,
recreation. Yeah, the Dendara, that's it. The recreation of that light bulb. That this is, we're talking batteries, electricity, light bulbs. These are things that still people to this day would not believe would be possible for ancient Egypt. But the evidence, I think, there's a lot of evidence there for it, but it's been ignored.
There. Yeah, and like when you go inside the Great Pyramid at Giza, Christopher Dunn has done a lot of work on showing that he believes that it was some sort of power plant, and I'm still on the fence there about the whole power plant thing. But some sort of operating machine. I could say, yeah, I think it was some sort of machine, or there was some sort of machinery that was in it. Because when you go into the Queen's Chamber, I know everybody says, look at the King's Chamber, which the King's Chamber is fascinating. And there's some interesting things about that coffer that's in there that, traditional archaeology tries to say is a sarcophagus. And, we're like, no, it wasn't.
Where's the body?
Where's the body? But if you go into the Queen's Chamber, there's this niche in the one wall, and it has, basically like a a vent. It has one of those little passages that goes out to the side of the pyramid. Well, you look at the back wall of that niche, and the stone there is vitrified. It's been melted, and there's black scorch marks on it. So, traditional archaeologists has tried to say about that niche, well, it would have been like some sort of, idol or statue, looking over, the king or whatever. And it's like, something there was so hot, it melted the stone. It was not a statue or an idol or anything like that.
And just a flame. We're talking some immense heat.
Immense heat to be able to melt the stone. So this would have been limestone. So to melt limestone, and I'd have to look up the numbers. It's still, a significant amount of heat to the point that it charted as well. And of course, it makes sense having, the hole there in the side to go out to the side,
like
of
as
the
an exhaust.
pyramid, as an
kind.
exhaust. Yes.
Yeah. It's just the question is, what were they? What was still like? What is it? If it's exhausting something, what was the purpose? What is it powering? Did they have electric lines? Like saying, what is
like welding?
No. But what's that, Jimmy?
Like a welder almost, or something.
What it's? I mean, it would be like a massive. Like the theory has been is that it's a massive power plant. I don't know.
Right.
It seems like it's producing something. Who puts all that work in for a tomb?
Well, yeah, it's not a tomb, and you would
For a
not
dead
put that
body.
much work into a tomb. That doesn't make any sense. And the amount of time that would have taken to build that tomb for the pharaoh that it said that had it built, he would have been long since dead by the time it got finished. But the idea of power plant or not, the pyramids there on the Giza Plateau are built right on top of what we call one of those like hotspot nodes of energy,
like ley lines.
Yeah, ley lines. Ley lines. I always say ley lines are like the layman terms.
Yeah,
it's basically what the ley is. It's the geographic lining up of all those different sites of power, and the reason why they were built at those locations to line up like that is because of the telluric currents, the energy running within the ground, and you have those. It's easier to call them ley lines and hotspot nodes, but when they connect, it's called a conductivity discontinuity. And basically, it's like a real energetic location when they cross like that. And the pyramids are built right on top of one of those. So the idea, just the way it's constructed and everything, machinery aside, just the way it's constructed is going to harness that earth energy to be able to do something with it. So harness it, emanating out. It could be for a couple of different reasons. One, when you have that type of energy that's coming up from the ground and you're expending it across a great swath of land, the people are going to feel that. They're going to feel that energy. So you're energizing the people of the land. But also, one of the main things that they were trying to do there in Egypt was, you're talking an ancient race. They're trying to survive. They're trying to live. And they basically had to wait until every June when they had the inundation season for basically the Nile River to be flooded and all that rich black soil to be brought down the river so that they could plant their crops. And so since this was just very, kind of touch and go, you hoped, fingers crossed you had a good season and not a drought. You want those crops to grow well. So that energy is also going to help with that process in growing the crops.
I mean, Egypt was named Kemet for black soil,
black land.
like
Yes,
black land. Because it was that was what it was about, was like being able to grow crops and build. What I've always wondered, though, and it seems, I mean, because there's arguments about how old the Giza pyramid is. In Egyptology, of course, they want to say Egyptians built this. Right. But it seems like at least the main pyramid could have been built by a whole other civilization, and the Egyptians just repurposed it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Egyptians that you talk to that will say that their people found the pyramids, and they just repurposed them. When you look at like the bent pyramid, which traditional archaeology tries to say, well, this was the first run at it, and they screwed it up and they went at it at a different angle halfway through, and it's attributed to the pharaoh Sneferu. Well, if you actually look at his name, it essentially means the restorer. And so if you're attributing the name the restorer to this pyramid, well, it means he restored the pyramid, not actually built it, which is kind of fascinating in and of itself. So yeah, you look inside these pyramids and you do not find hieroglyphs.
Right. They're like not part of the dynastic.
Yeah, they're not
line
part of the
kings.
dynastics. Right. They're not part of the dynastic Egyptians. They would have had to have predated the dynastic Egyptians. So yeah, and then there's the one, well, within the Great Pyramid of Giza, up above the King's Chamber, in one of those little chambers above that, there is a red cartouche up there. It's red paint, but it's so just. Who's the Egyptologist?
I know that's what I'm trying to think of right now.
That
the culprit in this, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think he because of the fact that he wasn't coming away with anything. I mean, anytime that these were investigated, they wanted to come away with gold and loot, and that just was not in the pyramid. And so he had to come away with something. Yeah. And so
because there was a lot of money was funded to do this. I can't remember the guy's name. Dang it!
I can't either. But it was so hastily thrown up there that you got to think of the way that the dynastic pharaohs wanted to be remembered. It was
not hastily done.
No, it was great, magnificent statues. We got you take a look at Ramses II. He put his name everywhere. And
this is mine.
This is mine. Even if it pre-existed him, and we do have evidence that he put his name on things that pre-existed him. But that's what they did. They were like, "Oh, I'm the pharaoh now, so boom, boom, boom. My name's."
But they didn't do that to the Great Pyramid.
They didn't do that to the Great Pyramid, and they're going to hide away with some red paint back in. No, that doesn't make any sense.
But it also shows if they didn't do it to the pyramid, they had some kind of respect for the pyramid not to do that.
Absolutely,
that it isn't theirs.
Yeah, yeah. So I believe the pharaohs knew to respect it like that. Now, thousands of years after the fact, the pyramids were disrespected.
Yeah. Now, I've always wondered too, because of that, like, are some of the pyramids, the smaller ones? I'm not a Egyptologist. I don't remember all the pyramids, but you got two more in the Giza. Right. There's two more right there, right next to the big one. Could those be in an attempt to copy the big pyramid?
Well,
like, it doesn't work anymore. Whatever it did technology-wise doesn't work anymore. And these people are now like, if we just make a pyramid, it'll do what it did back 100,000 of years ago that we heard it did, or something. I don't know.
Right. You see evidence of different structures around Egypt that are certainly that, where they are trying to mimic what had been there, but it's never done as well.
Right.
And you see this in South America with like the Incan ruins too, where we say, okay, these were pre-Incan. And archaeology is like, no, they were just an older Incan culture. It's like, no, even the people that are there are saying,
but they're better than what the Incans did.
Yeah, because the newer stuff on top is worse. So how do you, if you're sitting there, your theory is that, well, as civilization continues to evolve, the technology gets better, and we progressively come out with all these better things. Okay, then why are the newer constructions worse? It doesn't make any sense.
Civilization fell apart, and this is just the remnants trying to rebuild what was once.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not be aliens involved at all. It could just be we were more advanced human civilizations that were wiped out by a great flood. That is in all history.
You see
many
it in
cultures.
almost every culture. You see it in almost every culture across the world that there was a great flood, and so you have to say it happened. It absolutely did, and there's other like geological evidence for that.
Yeah,
absolutely. So what throws people off is using the A word, talking about Atlantis. Once you mention Atlantis, boom, people are turned off. So
I'm not.
It's kind of like why we went from flying saucers and UFOs to UAPs. Yeah, because it doesn't have that stigma that these other terms have. Yeah. So we're doing the same thing here with Atlantis. So like Graham is he has mentioned Atlantis, but he really tries to steer it more toward lost civilization, lost civilization. And he kind of picks and chooses where he uses the Atlantis word.
I can get that kind of, because you don't want to be, I'm looking for Atlantis, I'm going to find Atlantis kind of deal. You want to not be, what do you want to call it? Have preconceived notions of what you're looking for in history. You want to look for lost civilizations. Who were they? What are the evidence? You want to call, this was Atlantis. This was Atlantis. I've heard a lot of places claim to be Atlantis. I don't know. We don't know what was Atlantis. We have, Plato's writings.
Right, and that's where it comes from Plato. But Plato's stories come from Egypt. So,
right.
Basically, it was his great uncle Solon, and from 150 years before Plato, and the stories are passed down to him. He wrote them in two documents, the Critias and Timaeus, and they're incomplete. We don't know if the other parts of it were lost or if he just stopped writing about it. But basically, Solon had gone to Egypt. He was also a great philosopher, went to Egypt, hung out at the Temple of Sais, was talking there with a priest named Sanchis. Sanchis either told him the story or showed him where in the archives the story was, of the story of Atlantis. And we can see some remnants of that at the Temple of Edfu. But it's one of those that, is this just a piece of the story? Like the idea that it was a not just a city, but a worldwide culture at that time that had, perhaps many colonies and these sorts of things. So, because you see this story in so many different cultures across the world that there's definitely something to it.
It's like the British Empire. They had colonies, and
Mm-hmm.
they affected and changed the cultures of many civilizations. And if they suddenly had disappeared and you just left those civilizations to go on their own without Britain, those impressions they made on their cultures would stay there.
Yeah, they would say there was this civilization that once traveled here from afar and founded our colony. Yeah, that's a great example.
And there's also there's one, I can't remember where it is, but I remember one where it was during World War II, I believe. Our soldiers went to a very place where a very isolated island or somewhere.
The cargo cults. Yeah.
Yeah. And
those are
they
interesting.
But that to me has always been a prime example what can happen when you take a society that's more advanced to a primitive one and leaves their impression and then leaves. Let's say they end up worshiping them like gods. This could be aliens or other advanced civilizations. We don't know. I still think there had to been some kind of, if you get all the way back into like the Sumerian, when you get into Anunnaki and Anunnaki and all that it really, and not just that. I mean, you get into some of the like the Dogon, was it from Africa?
Oh, the Dogon tribe. How did they know about the second star before we did? Before we had telescopes that could actually see it. There's Native American
tribes, and they're telling are very pretty much they came from the stars. I'm saying there's evidence in so many cultures of something beyond not just a gods where they mention stars, they mention beings of some kind influencing or dramatically changing their civilization. Giving them something or propelling them on. There's just it's so much of it. And it's just it's mind-boggling to me how many years of modern archaeology just goes, nothing to see here.
Right.
Move along.
Yeah, they have a narrative that they're trying to tell, and when they have things that fly in the face of that, they just want to brush it aside. And some of it, I get it. There's like some pride there, like, this is what I've been teaching for the last 40 years. I have all these books on the subject, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, to me, it's like, well, that's just an opportunity to write another book.
Right.
Or, I guess my question is, where did the passion go? Because
that's my thing. Why aren't you curious?
Right, exactly. Because when they
it's a mystery.
When they first got into the field, that this was like some guy that had, and maybe they predate Indiana Jones, but at least had that same vibe that, I want to go to these historic locations. I want to find some cool stuff. I want to be the first to discover this, and this. So they had that passion to start with. And, from where did it turn from passion to preservation? I just,
Of a narrative.
preservation of
honestly.
a narrative that they had to stick by it. And maybe that was, these guys, they will get threatened if you go down this path. We're going to take away your funding.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. So it's preservation of a job, but yeah, it's really a shame because that they got into it with a passion for doing the right thing, and they turned away from that at some point.
You have to wonder. I mean, modern day academia, for it to be this still suppressed, is how much is this influenced by? I don't want the government, or I don't even like to say the government, because I don't believe it's like our government, but some organization that's been in control of this knowledge and technology, even maybe, and maybe have had contact. We talk about Area 51. I was mentioning about how the guy got raided last November. They took all this stuff for daring to take an interest in it. That there is some influence by an entity into our, is it just to preserve the narrative, or is it there as an actual purpose to keep us from discovering the past? Because the past is the key to the future.
There's some of it that, like some of these private collectors, they believe having some of these different artifacts will give them a power.
I've talked about this with a guest, Heather Lynn, who's an archaeologist.
Yeah, she's a friend of mine, Dr. Heather.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she is. She's had those conversations with guys. She would be on like a Zoom call or whatever, and she sees the artifacts behind them. It's like, what the hell? But when I was in Egypt last, we were in the Temple of Dendara, and they had just opened up the second crypt there. They told us we were the first group to go in there. Whether or not that was true, I don't know. But they had just recently opened up the second crypt. The first crypt has the Dendara light bulb. So I guess it had been closed off to tourists for like 20 years.
Wow.
And so we're down there, we're looking around, it's cool. Okay. It's just a little underground passage, and it's got some of the different hieroglyphs and friezes and stuff like that on the walls. But then there are like these big chunks that are taken out of the walls. And you're looking at it like, why is this missing? It's not like something just, it's not like the block just fell out onto the ground. You see on the wall chisel marks from where they cut it out. And they're not old chisel marks. There's no patina that's built up on this. These are pretty fresh.
This is recent.
Oh, this is what they've been doing over the past 20 years. And so I asked the question, I'm not going to say to whom, but I asked the question, okay, so obviously over the last 20 years, they've been taking, some of this material. Where did it go? And the answer was private collectors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So whatever was on those glyphs, whatever knowledge was there, they bid on that stuff, and to whoever the highest bidder was, they feel like this has some secret knowledge or whatever, and now I have that knowledge and I have that power.
Yeah. We got to go to commercial break. That was one of my favorite things to talk to Heather about, was that whole experience.
Yeah.
Having these conversations with guys like this, because I believe that some of the people that are in control of the UFO information, aliens, that are part of a cult, a Babylonian cult, that believe that they know some secrets, and it's almost like a religion to them. And they are looking. It's like Indiana Jones stuff going on here. We got to go to commercial break. So much more to talk about, and we'll open up the phone line, guys, when we come back from the short commercial break. Call in, join this conversation, ask a question of our guest Mike Ricksecker tonight, author of A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people, and many other great books, and featured on Ancient Aliens tonight when we come back from the short commercial break.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Can John Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday at the live stream with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Edgar Allan Poe wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
Please, Spock, do me a favor. And don't say it's fascinating. No. But it is interesting.
Listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID oojblandoo or Jblandparanormalsoup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Mike Ricksecker. He's the author of A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people, along with 8 historic books and Alaska Mysterious Triangle. We got to get into hot spots like I want to talk about Alaska's Mysterious Triangle. These places, these energy centers like in Giza, the pyramid. He's been to these places. I wish I could travel. He's living my dream life here. I wish I could go see these places. Maybe one day I will. But I've always been fascinated, like Skinwalker Ranch, these places that are portals of energy of some kind that have all these weird paranormal effects. We've had some recent guests on lately that talked about a lot of this, and maybe we'll get into that tonight. But the phone lines are now open. You can call into the show, join the conversation, ask questions of our guests, talk about an experience, whatever. Join us tonight. We're always getting into the weird, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Thank you, Mike, for continuing on with us tonight. Phone lines are open, guys. Call in, ask your questions. We're going to continue talking about the strange and unusual and the ancient history and all that good gobbledygook stuff I love on Ancient Aliens, too. Me and my wife always tell people we go to the Church of Ancient Aliens. because I don't... Yeah, go ahead.
You should come to Egypt with us. I know you're not going to be able to do that in 2 weeks, but we're going to do a tour again next year. Come along.
Really? In 2024?
2024, we're doing it. Jamie, you too. I know Jamie was interested.
I'd always want to go, but my wife has to go, and I have to get her over her fear of flying.
There's a little bit of flying involved, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. A lot for somebody who's totally afraid of planes. I one day will get her over it because I want to go Ireland. I have a lot of Irish heritage. I've always wanted to see. I want to see all these places. Like for you, getting the travel, to Giza, and I know you've been to Ireland.
I'm so jealous. Ireland this past year. Yep.
Yeah, and the Alaskan Triangle, all these places. Is it a common feeling of like you feel something there in any of these places, or like you feel different, or you feel any kind of effect of the place, or?
For sure, yeah. Well, I mean, part of it, like when you're in Egypt, there's just you're awestruck at first.
Right.
So how much you can't. So how much of it is the energy that's there, and how much of it is you're just like, oh my God, because it is quite amazing. But like when we were in Ireland, there are some locations there. A great example is Drombegstone Circle.
Oh yeah.
And you stand right in the middle of the circle. You absolutely feel the energy, but even just talking, because it is a really kind of closed in type of a circle, you can feel the reverberation of your voice and just the way it kind of has this weird kind of echoey fishbowl type effect in your ear.
Yeah.
It's really wild. And so you just sit there and imagine, okay, 2,000 years ago when this thing was first built and the stones were in their full glory and there were more of the stones there, how much more so did this create a resonance and vibration that those druids back in that time were able to use and harness? It's just amazing to think about.
I always think about with the druids and with the Egyptians, when you're talking about moving massive, heavy stones, major labor to pull off these things.
Yeah.
So these people were also fighting to survive, to eat.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you convince an entire culture like that? Like, hey, stop growing your crops and doing what you're doing. We're going to go build this huge, massive thing over here.
Yeah, there had to be some real intent, purpose, and payback or a payoff of doing this. What's the incentive? That's always, to me, there's so much. Again, why does academia just nothing to see here, move along?
I just thought a conspiracy theory for that one.
What's a theory? Let's hear it. Come on, Jamie. What's the conspiracy theory?
All right. Well, it makes me think about what's happening right now with everything and how they're starting to move people. They're taking away our food, not letting us grow crops, things like that.
There's a big major food problem right now.
The camps up around, we might be forced into working for something. I don't know. Just a thought.
turning frogs scary. No, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm gonna
we
get
can,
my
we
Alex
can go
Jones
down
impression in.
but we can go down
this
conspiracy
road
route because okay, the whole
because I hear you.
Yeah, we're gonna ban the gas stoves. Really? Okay,
Right.
so let's make everything electric.
We're gonna
so
eat bugs.
At any point in time, boom, they can flip off the switch. Really?
Yep.
Making gas stoves illegal out here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
insane.
All of
We're
a
wanting to
sudden, fish has too much mercury in it. They don't want us, eating fish.
Telling people they'll be fined if they venture out 15 minutes outside of their community. Things that are going on like at the World Economic Forum right now are a bit concerning. I mean, Carl Schwab looks like a Bond villain. He sounds like a Bond villain. I think he's a Bond villain. I'm just saying. Look at the guy. He actually reminds me of the bad guy out of Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventure. You remember that movie? The second one, I think it was. It's like the bad guy from the future. That's what Carl Schwab reminds me from. It's like he's like, it's just too much for me. Like you're gaslighting me here. The guy's a Bond villain. Look at him. Maybe he's a philanthropist. I don't know. But the things that they're saying and coming out is a bit concerning. Again, are we going down the same road another civilization went down the road thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago? Are we repeating the same mistakes? Or what?
Humans tend to repeat the same mistakes over and over
Yeah.
and over again, which is why we need to be students of history. But most people aren't. And then, like we've been talking about the whole time, don't look over here. Don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yes,
And
exactly.
haven't we had about like 7 extinctions or something? They say that the world's already had, the Earth's already gone through
7
like
extinction
7
events.
extinction. Yeah.
Of species, we know. That's the thing. When you talk about fossils and like dinosaurs and all that stuff, that's fossilization. There has to be certain conditions for that to happen. There's plenty that's just been turned to dust. Species we never knew existed on this planet that didn't get fossilized. Things that have just turned to dust, gone forever. We'll never know they existed here. There's so much in our past we don't know, let alone in our own human history and civilization. And it doesn't help when you have academia trying to cover it up or look away or rewrite history. Yeah.
Starting the history books at a certain point.
Yeah, I mean, how many people know? I just saw this. I think it was Tim Pool's cast where it's showing pictures of it. That they had back in the 1930s at in New York a huge rally for the Nazi Party at what was it, the big stadium there. It was in Time. Hitler was Time Magazine's Person of the Year. We don't talk about these things. We want to forget about them. History is written by the victors. I'm saying, and we want to forget certain things that have passed. We are constantly trying to ignore or rewrite history, even in our modern day.
Yeah, we tend to forget that it was really our stock market crash that put Hitler into power.
Yep.
Because Germany had taken out, when they were going through their rebuild during the 20s after World War I, they had invested a lot into, I think all their bonds, or they had bought a bunch of U.S. bonds is what it was. And basically when our stock market crashed, all the bonds that Germany had just tanked. And so the Nazi Party, which was it was a small party at the time. They were they had a couple
bunch
of
of young
seats.
men out of work.
Yeah, they had a couple of seats in control at the time. But when that happened, they're like, see, this is what we've been talking about. And suddenly everybody voted them in.
Well, look at the era we're going into now. If we go into a major recession, where we go into the food supplies start to drain, the inflation,
the bank situations all over the world right now.
If you have a bunch of people out of work, especially a bunch of young people out of work, nothing to do, no hope, the wrong people come along and turn that into something real nasty. And history's proven to us that many a times. And that's what scares me for the future. And well, the aliens might be watching, but
the average age of an empire is about 200 years. We've had some empires go very long and others that were very short. The average age is about 200 years. Well, we are 240 40? I got to think of how old I am.
I don't think about it.
200, yeah. So we're 247 years old.
I think that's right. Yes.
No, 46. I was born in 74. 200 years to be 76. So yeah. And I'm 48 right now. So yeah.
So we're past our expiration date.
We are.
Basically in human civilization terms. That's the
we're
thing.
Past the average.
if we fell apart, this is what you should. It's an older show that was on History Channel, Life After People. If like humanization fell apart and like modern civilization, technology, and there's a big death toll. A lot of most humanization disappears. Modern civilization, technology, all these things. How quickly everything just goes to dust and disappears. Except for the nuclear power plants, we'll have a big problem if the humanization collapses and those things are sitting around.
Well, yeah. I mean, you think about there's a really good novel. It's fictionalization, but it's called 1 Second After, and basically it's about what if a massive EMP hit the United States, and so it gets into basically how society would devolve.
Right.
We're so reliant on going to the grocery store and getting our food. Well,
It
what
would
if
be
that doesn't
days.
happen anymore?
It would only be. It would only. There's been studies on this. Like if the power grid shut down suddenly, we had no power. It would be literal within a week. People would start starving to death.
Absolutely.
Like literally, the food supplies would be out.
Yep.
With
And they would all
California's-
start. Go ahead, Jamie.
They're playing with California's electric grid right now, trying to force us into buying electric cars. That there's a flex alert that you cannot charge them for between like 4 and 9 p.m. So already you can't charge your cars to go anywhere. They're trying to outlaw gas, I think, by like 2035.
35. Yeah.
So you can't even
They
drive.
try.
to
They
a
have it as a law. It is a law in California that they're going to outlaw gas.
And that's just insane. Yeah, we
Well,
want
all
you
these
on
things are
electric,
in
but you can't
place.
charge it.
Yeah. And what's most frustrating about this for us in the UFO lore and communities, we believe that there's technology that some of these corporations have or our government that could revolutionize the power industry.
Oh,
we wouldn't need
absolutely.
fossil fuels if we could touch into that technology.
Well, just look at the work Tesla did.
Right.
He was so far ahead of his time. I've been in the middle, and I have the book sitting here, actually. I've been deep into this book here, Life and Times Nikola Tesla by Mark Seifer.
Another book I got to get.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I
Hold that up again for me?
Yeah,
What's that?
sure. It's called Wizard.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, my God. Dang, another book. I'm writing that down.
Yep, write that one down. Yeah, it's like a really, really comprehensive book on his life and the work that he did.
Yeah.
And what's kind of ironic is, we were talking a little bit about AI earlier, and there's been some articles out on that recently. And so I was going to, cover, and I did cover AI in my last class I did on Wednesday. Well, ironically enough, I came across a chapter in that book talking about Tesla's automatons that he created. The one was a he called it a teletomaton, and basically it was the world's first drone. It was a boat. It was he actually had radio operated torpedoes for this thing. Basically, it was the time of the Spanish-American War.
Yeah.
And Tesla did not believe in war and violence and all that. What he viewed it as was the machines could fight each other, and then humans wouldn't have to lose life. And so, we have drone warfare these days. So he was way ahead of his time. But then he was talking about, I envision an automaton of myself. And basically, the way he described it was he's talking about building a robot with AI and, developing its own consciousness.
Wow.
This is 125 years ago. Who was talking about that back then?
I
Except
know.
Tesla. Yeah.
It seems like Tesla, Da Vinci, these guys are like ultimate geniuses, always at the same time can't help but make things that could be ultimately destructive, though. I
Right.
mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's like, again, the Battlestar Galactica thing. We're destined to repeat
we have lost
and make.
now.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. I mean, he wants to put chips in people's brains, I like some of his and it would help. It would help people with severe disabilities. But what's going to be the end result of that? Like.
Right.
A human transhumanism. What's going to be the result of that? It's I feel I don't want to fear the future, but I can't help it.
How far is too far? Yeah. It's kind of scary to think about, because the issue is, the more that we become, there's so many pros and cons. Like, with the technology that we have these days, we've been able to come closer together. We're able to do this show now. I can, I can get on my phone and text somebody, that sort of thing. But there's that criticism of everybody's on their phone. So even though we're coming closer together, there's also this disconnect. And then how much of the powers that be that control this different hardware and these different programs and all that, how much are they actually getting their hooks into your life where all of a sudden you become dependent on them, and how much of your information are they actually able to grab from you and maybe use against you or whatever. It's kind of a slippery slope where again, pros and cons.
Yeah, and it's like again, I like social media now, with the whole Twitter and Elon takeover of Twitter and the Twitter files, and we're finding out how much our government was involved.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not surprised about any of this.
No, not at all.
I mean, I don't know why anybody is, but I'm glad it's getting exposed, but
No,
I'm not surprised. I mean, I pretty much assumed that's what's going on. Because you go back, I mean, it's just you just look at history. I mean, they wanted to, get involved with, there's Project Mockingbird. They wanted to get involved with our media, right? A CIA got involved with journalists. I mean, this is just the next step. Of course, they're going to be involved in this.
That's history for you. That's been going on for thousands of years, and people don't want to, because it makes them feel unsafe, and so they don't want to believe that their government has done these different things, because it begs to question what are they involved in? What have they convinced me that is true, that is not? And that makes a person feel unsafe, and most people want to stay in their nice little cocoon and leave me alone and that sort of thing. So then
I got a job to work, I got kids to feed, I got things to worry about, and that's how I am. I have to be that way, but I am trying to voice my opinion about it. But what can you do? You got a life to live. You got to survive.
So people don't want to think about the system being rigged against them. But it is. And that has been the way that nearly every society has been for thousands of years. Whoever's in charge is rigging it against the actual people that they're in charge of.
Sorry. But it's power corrupts absolutely, right? I mean,
it's absolutely,
it's just the way it goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, all the big, you go, like you said, history. I mean, all the big, powerful people in America's early history, modern history, they bought the printing presses. You know what I'm saying? They bought the newspapers. Bezos, Washington Post. I mean, control the narrative, control the media.
Follow the money.
Yeah.
And you see who owns everything.
And again, your government's part of that. Your government's also they can't own a newspaper, but they can do things to, hey, we'll give you this if you make sure you say this,
And at some point, people throw up their arms. They say enough is enough. They have a revolution. They overthrow whoever's in charge, and then the new people in charge. It might be okay for a little while, but eventually the same thing happens again.
Yeah, exactly. You remember reading that book and we're just doomed. Humans just screw each other over. It was animals there, but we know we're talking about humans.
Right.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, do we get out of a cycle that we've been in for thousands of years? Or are we in that cycle, like just building up civilization and then it just all falls apart? It's just the chaos theory. I don't know. Like, are we just inevitably doomed to get to a certain point? I've heard Michio Kaku and them talk about civilizations like we're type 0, and type 1 and type 2 and type 3. This is where aliens would have to be type 3, to be able to come here and do all these things. And it's like, but how the heck, what are the odds of us actually getting out of type 0 to type 1? It doesn't look very good for us, especially when you introduce things like nuclear weapons and drones. I mean, Tesla, brilliant man, and he thought robots would fight each other, no humans would die. Well, I hate to tell you, Tesla, that's not how it works. You're a brilliant man, but you don't realize that they will always find a better way of killing humans. Robots aren't just going to kill each other. No, they're going to kill each other and move on. Whichever wins is going to move on and go kill the humans.
And kill the humans
controlled that
drone. They can glitch and be hacked too. So in their own
and they all just start killing every human. He didn't see Terminator. It was before his time. But, that's the thing. It's like brilliant minds can create some brilliant things that just change humanity for good or for bad. It's that humans will take those tools of a brilliant person and can use them for bad. Nothing against Tesla. Nothing against Da Vinci. These guys were brilliant. But again, it's like these things are in the ether of the collective consciousness to be built, made, and it's going to happen. This technology. My opinion is about AI, and I said, I think last week, that this is the year of AI. I've seen more and more stories. It seems like we are coming to a precipice soon,
vamping
where AI is going to radically change civilization.
In the next several years, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if not this year, but it's definitely down the road. You look at, like our augmented reality technology and how much you can, you could pick up your cell phone and just pan around and see like a whole different reality right in front of your eyes. And we're becoming more and more into VR and things like that. But they're also talking
I got to admit,
about,
I'm into VR big time.
Oh yeah, no, I've got a Quest. Yeah, I've got a
Me
Meta
too. I got a
Quest too.
Quest. I got a PS4 VR.
Yeah,
like,
no,
yeah,
it's
I'm
fun.
guilty.
It's cool, and I like running around in there.
But you don't want to
Actually,
live in it, right?
you don't want to
No.
live in it. No,
Play,
no.
but
No, but
Did you see-
I'll use it for like the old game Myst they brought into VR. So it's like,
Oh,
okay,
I
this is
love
a game.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like this is a game that I played like 30 years ago, and I can
Yeah.
actually walk around in it.
Yes.
Or the other one that I'll do, it's a boxing game, and I do it for like a workout.
It is a workout. I almost died. Like I realized how out of shape I was. Thrill of the fight. I'm like,
yes, thrill of the fight. Yep. I do that one almost
one
every
round.
day. Yep.
One round. I have not gotten back to that. The first try. I actually have a basement trying to clean out so I can do that. But yeah, we're heading into a new era of technology. I feel like that's going to radically change civilization.
So people aren't even living in reality. You can walk down the street and see a completely different reality than the person next to you, depending what device you have on.
Yeah,
Really
they're
making
developing.
contacts.
Yes, I was just about to say that they're developing contacts that you can put in. Yep.
Yeah, it's just like, you live in a garbage. They can totally change San Francisco now. It doesn't have to look like a bunch of homeless people in a total wreck. Garbage, you can put in these contacts. It'll look like beautiful flowers. Like just don't manage the smell. They'll fix that with a chip in your brain. They'll make you smell flowers
There
too,
you go.
or whatever. Like they can just change reality completely for us. But we all
They're
look
putting
like crap.
VR on cows so they can make better milk
Yeah, you covered
of
that.
pastures. Yeah.
Well, let's put, the cow doesn't realize it's about to be slaughtered. Just put a VR headset on him. It's like I'm a little mad scientist. There's things I love about human technology and progression, like the mad scientist in me loves, the gaming person loves, but there's things there's other part of me that's like, I totally fear this, like where we're going down, the, transhumanism especially. I honestly, I've always had the theory when you get down into the alien topic of parallel universes and timelines that there's a possibility we're being visited by future versions of us that are thousands of years ahead of us in our parallel future, because a lot of descriptions of grays and aliens that they're like biomechanical or something like that. There's this idea that, they're just androids in themselves, but that we are going to develop. I got this thought when I was a kid at a museum that showed like I don't remember what museum I was at, was with my parents, but there was this depiction of what humans could look like 4,000 years from now if we kept evolving and changing. And I swear to God, it looked like the being out of like when of course it's not accurate to what he saw in his incident, but they depicted it in Travis Walton's Fire in the Sky in the movie. That's not really what happened to Travis Walton in that movie, but they kind of showed like the alien that looks at him in there. It's what it reminded me of, is like, and I thought about that as a kid, is like we're moving down this path of transhumanism. We're becoming more. I mean, right now you are with your cell phone. Okay, I mean, you don't have a chip in your brain, but when you want to look up something, what do? You go to Google. We have all this information technology. We're now all, myself just as guilty as the rest of the human race, that we have at our fingertips. Soon will be in our head. Saying we are changing ourselves. When you become dependent on this thing, and you're going to eventually put it inside you. You know what I'm saying? That's my fear, is that we're going to go down this path.
Over there shaking her head.
She is, because she's the biggest fear of her.
Me
either, but eventually people will. That's what I'm saying. It's just, again, like AI, it's like, we're going to do this thing, man. You might not like it, but this is where we're going. I don't see how it doesn't stop. How we don't end up at this point. We're just heading there. I mean, look at what stuff that Elon Musk is talking about. Look at what Jeff Bezos is talking about. Yeah.
We're working on all this consciousness and memories and all this stuff. It's just, to me, going into robots with this messed up thought pattern. I don't even know. It's not going to be real. None of it.
And that's the thing. We have so much in the paranormal field, UFOs and aliens and ghosts and Bigfoot, all these mysteries and all this stuff. At the same time, we have a society that it thinks it knows everything and is going down a path of technology. It should be able to explain all these mysteries that we're trying to wonder eventually. But my fear is that we turn into the monsters in the dark. You know, we become something that's not human.
We become what everybody's been seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like one of the things I wonder about. All right, we'll get off that topic. Actually, one topic I want to get into, because we got about 30 minutes till the last commercial break, I want to get into is places that are, we've talked about ley lines and that, and hot spots. You've been to I just thought about it, the triangle, Alaskan Triangle.
Yeah.
And Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know if you've been watching that show that they're doing on there. You know, these places have always fascinated me. You know, again, guys, you know, are they portals to another dimension? Why people see different, not just UFOs, but strange creatures there. One of the connections I've made too, like especially Skinwalker Ranch. I've been fascinated about that place because I also, when I was a kid, remember my mom get me interested in the story of the Bell Witch. I don't, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with the Bell Witch from Tennessee. One of the things when I first started hearing the stories out of Utah about Skinwalker Ranch is how it started, if I remember right, was a father and son were out hunting, right? Or they weren't hunting. It was a beast that came out of the field and attacked one of their cattle. That's right. They saw a big black beast that like tried to pull one of their cattle through a gate, and they shot at it, and it took off. And when I first heard that, I go, God, that eerily familiar to how the Bell Witch events started, with the father and son were hunting and encountered a beast in the field.
But if I recall correctly, they ran after it, and at some point it like dematerialized or something like that.
In the Skinwalker Ranch, like it hit a ravine, and all the tracks disappeared, and even on the other side of the ravine there was no tracks. It's like it just dematerialized. But what I always found interesting is that these two places, because if you look at the Bell Witch instance, you know, it's a lot of psychokinetic activity, a lot of weird strangeness that happened. You know, this is what, late 1800s, right? Or when was it? Or 1700s? I can't remember. The Bell Witch happened. But there's all this psychokinetic activity. It all started out with this like beast in the field thing, and so did the beast in the beginning of the Skinwalker Ranch, and they have had all this weird, strange activity. And we can get into what's a skinwalker. That to you know, the legend of the Navajo.
The Navajo cursed the Utes, right?
Yeah, and all that. But it just seems like some of these places have some similarities in phenomenon. Many multiple phenomena, seeing lights in the sky to seeing dogmen or Bigfoot or just we had a guest on that talked a lot about the physics and maybe got into like ball lightning and like condensed matter physics that went way over my head, but it was really interesting. But what is your thoughts between all these places that might be going on? What is it that is making this activity happen? Is it real activity, or is this a psycho phenomenon, or being caused by electromagnetic energy? Going to these places yourself, what is your thoughts?
It's the magnetism. Straight up, it's the magnetism. So like, okay, you take the Alaska Triangle. In the 1960s, U.S. Department of the Interior did magnetic surveys up there, and because Alaska is so huge and remote and all that, they could only cover like 100,000 square miles of it. So only that's pretty large. But what they found up there is what they called magnetic characters, and they found 5 different magnetic characters up there, some of which contained what they called negative anomalies. So, they had detected these negative magnetic anomalies up there. And what's going on at these locations, like Skinwalker Ranch, they've detected a lot of strange EMF there, and really all these places. And what's going on is you have a molten iron core within the earth, and it's spinning because the earth is spinning, and it kind of ebbs and flows. Of course, the earth wobbles with the precession and all that sort of stuff, so it's not like an even swirl that's going on there. But basically, when you have molten iron that's spinning like that, you're creating a magnetic field. So in the magnetic field is going to fluctuate because, again, it's molten. Well, also what's happening here is as that magnetic field stretches through the earth, and of course, one of the good things that it does for us is it protects us from the solar radiation and all that. But as it's passing through the Earth's mantle and crust and all that, it's passing through different metals and minerals, water, things like this, that depending on what's there in the ground, it's going to interact with those items and create different fields. So a location like Skinwalker Ranch, now some people are saying, well, you know, there might be a UFO in the ground or something like that.
Yeah, the Mesa. They think there could be an alien
There
base
could
in
be
the Mesa.
there could be something like that in the Mesa, or there might be something under what they call the Triangle area. I think what it is there's probably a very, very large pocket of some sort of metal or mineral that's there, that as the magnetism is, you know, stretching from the Earth, which is, you know, very natural, it's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
It's hitting that and interacting with it and creating a very strange EMF field that is creating this other phenomenon or attracting the other phenomenon to it. So like, you know, the UAP phenomenon. Is some of it ball lightning? Maybe. Something like you know, we talk about, you know, UFOs would be attracted to these hotspot areas because they might have bases there, or they might be able to,
their ship.
They might be able to recharge or something like that. Could also be, since we've talked about like you know, time travelers or ultra terrestrials or something like that, something that is from another dimension or from another point in time that knows how to use that type of energy to be able to slip in and out of these other dimensions or these other point in times. These are the locations that they would go to be able to do that, because they have that extra energy there.
And so that's what I've always wondered, is it like a Stargate kind of deal that's going on at these locations? I mean, I was a big fan when I was a kid. I went and saw the theater Stargate, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, but I'm just, you know, it makes you wonder, these ancient sites, you know, there's a lot of descriptions of, I mean, it literally stays Stargate at some of these places, you know, that they're,
it does,
that these
yeah.
are
In Egypt,
portals.
you go there, yeah, you go to Egypt, you see Stargate in a number of different places. Yeah, that's right in front
you
of
know, I mean, but in South America, you know, you have the same description. You know, it's like, what we were in contact with might have not just been ships that came long distances through space, but might have just materialized here through natural areas of portals. And that's why certain areas, Egypt and trying to think about you know, places in Mesoamerica that have locations that were sacred because these were the portals where the gods came through, as you want to call it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of them talk about you know, actually witnessing people passing through these different gates and these different portals or stargates, whatever you want to call them. And you know, a story that I like to tell and I like to talk about, you know, concerning the Alaska Triangle. You know, there's several planes have gone missing up there, and they just disappear into nowhere. Some of them very, very high profile. So one of them was, you know, 1950, a Douglas Skymaster had 44 personnel on it, taking off from Elmendorf Air Force Base, crosses over into Canada, into the Snag area, and disappears. And nobody has ever seen it since. And so some of the speculation is that it passed through some sort of portal. But I take it a step further, and I ask, okay, so if it went through a portal, where did it go? You know, did it go to another dimension? Did it go to another point in time? Okay, let's say it went to another point in time. Let's say it went backwards in time, maybe 500, 1,000 years. Well, what would the Douglas Skymaster suddenly appeared in the air overhead to the indigenous people of the area at the time? What would that look like to them? Because they would have no context of what an airplane is. But it's very big, it's very loud, thunderous in nature. So maybe this is where like some of the Thunderbird legends are coming from.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. I mean, even like some of the stuff you see in the hieroglyphs of Egypt look like some modern technology, like helicopters or
Abydos,
planes. Abydos. You know, I'm saying, who's to say? And I'm a big believer if they're in the multiverse kind of parallel timelines, like the safe, paradox-free way of time travel. Like, where there's a possibility that, you know, you can travel back in time, but it's not your timeline. You can literally step on all the butterflies you want. You're not going to affect anything. It's a parallel past. That's like kind of the John Teeter explanation of time travel in a sense. That there could be lots of this in our history, lots of people slipping through and at different points in time, ending up in different points in history, but they're not changing anything. It's and it's kind of like hurts the brain to think about, but this is happening. It's almost like a natural effect. One of the things I think about is God, I can't think of the guy's name. It was the Bermuda Triangle. And the guy was, through the tunnel. You know, basically
he went ahead in time.
Slipped time.
Yep.
He went ahead in time.
Yep.
You know, that was a natural phenomenon. There was no ETs or UFOs involved. You know, it was just some kind of natural phenomenon that happened to him. And if this is what's happening in the Bermuda Triangle and the Alaskan Triangle and these other places and look, missing 411. You know, people that just vanish. You know, I mean, there's other explanations too, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, you have some people that are like legitimately going to get lost in the woods and get eaten by a bear. It happens, but there's such a in Alaska, 16,000 people have gone missing since 1988. That's a lot of people, especially considering how sparsely populated Alaska is. It has the population of about the city of San Francisco. You have 16,000 people that go missing. That's a lot. And yeah, sure, again, some of them got lost in the woods, got eaten by a bear, whatever. But you have people that went missing in the middle of a public race, like the Mount Marathon race, just suddenly disappeared.
Gone.
Yeah, gone. You have people that just, you hear the stories, and David Paulides has done a great job of this, where, two people walking side by side, all of a sudden one of them disappears. Now, on occasion, you hear the story where somebody's finally found in the woods, right, and they make it back to civilization. Weirder. It does, because then they'll tell a story of, I heard a noise on off the side of the path, and I took 2 steps off the path, couldn't find out what the noise was. Turn around, the path is gone. How does that happen? And so they end up wandering through the woods for who knows how long until they finally find civilization, or they finally get found. It's like, so what exactly happened there? Did they shift in time somewhere? Did they step into a portal that took them to another place in the woods? I mean, we could speculate all day on that and come up with a nice little sci-fi movie, but it's interesting.
There is a lot of good sci-fi movie ideas in here, but I mean, there's cases of people who've showed up or appeared out of their time here too. Mm-hmm. Or who claim to be from like a different parallel timeline. There's some instances of that. And so we wonder how much of this has gone on or is going on where we are having these slips, or people slipping into other parallel timelines or universes, or, what we don't even understand the nature of our own reality, maybe, that we are all shifting different parallel timelines when you get into like the Mandela effect and those things. Is it bad memory, or are we shifting? Is it CERN responsible?
Well, and you said a little bit ago that you don't believe that things get changed in time. Where I believe the Mandela effect is a result of those changes in time.
It could, I've definitely.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying that time travel couldn't happen. I just think it's a good possibility. There is a paradox-free way of travel to the past. But
I don't think there's going to be anything that just blows up the universe. Those people that say, if creative paradox is going to blow up the universe, it's like, no, it's just going to keep going on. So
the universe adjusts.
Yeah. So my whole theory on it is, time's all concurrent, past, present, future. Everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen are all happening at the same time. So take where you're sitting right now, everything is happening. And so, some of this paranormal activity that we're seeing and witnessing is like 2 of those moments just resonate at the same frequency, and we suddenly get a glimpse of that, which is why sometimes when you might see an apparition, and the apparition turns and looks at you as if you're the ghost. So I think that's
people
what's
have had
happening.
time slip phenomenon of like literally walked into a whole town that doesn't exist anymore, but it's there when they experience it. They meet and talk to people, and then they come back and find out the town's not even there.
Right. Yeah. You have the Versailles time slip, which was, that's a very famous one that happened there at the Conjuring House.
That's right. You've been to the Conjuring House too, haven't you?
Yep. Yeah. Had some interesting experiences there. You have the famous German poet Goethe, who talks about basically it's a time slip experience, but it's a doppelganger of himself, and I think a lot of these doppelganger cases are actually time slips.
Time slips,
Yeah. It's really fascinating.
My dad used to have this whole doppelganger thing. He worked on security alarms. He worked for a company that did security alarms, but he would walk into these places like, weren't you just here? He's like, no, I've never been here before. Like, I swear to God, I just talked to you. You were an electrician. He's like, I'm not an electrician. I'm a security alarm. But there's some guy who was walking around was like electrician, kind of in the same field as him, that looked just like him. It would always like people like, well, you've been here before. He's like, no, never been here before. Like he'd run into the doppelganger thing all the time. The doppelganger thing always interests me. Like people that have these experiences like that, where or hear somebody's voice that you know, and they turn around there, and then they walk in through the door. You know, always makes me wonder what's going on with time. You know.
Well, I have an interesting story for you because, you know, we started with the shadow people. So I was on Jim Harold's show a couple of years ago.
Great.
And he related this story to me as a young man who, when he was a kid, he walked into his kitchen, and there, standing by the kitchen table, was this tall, dark, hooded figure. Scared him to death, ran out of the room. Years later, he's older now. He's in the kitchen. He's at the table making a sandwich. He's wearing a hoodie. And in the doorway, he sees this short shadow person walk into the room and then, boom, book out of there. And it hits him. It's like, oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
That was me as a kid. And when I was a kid, I saw myself when I was older. So it's a doppelganger experience.
Yeah.
It's a time slip. It's a shadow person experience. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good
Fascinating.
one. That is oh my God, that is fascinating. You know, like it just shows, like you said, you know, the past, the present, and the future. You know, we see time in a linear fashion, but if it's, you know, but time isn't probably a linear fashion. With just our perception of it. So all these things are kind of still happening. You know, all at once, future, present, past, and it makes you. You know, I have to say a lot of the Mandela effect I do think is bad memory. But I've witnessed things and felt things that I felt were Mandela effect. My wife is even me have talked about that. You know, that there's certain things that like that's not this house. There was a certain house that my wife it said existed that is not there anymore. Or never was there. But she swears this house was there. And you know, like she swears it's her Mandela effect. You know, I've run into other people that have had this. You know, and you just wonder how much we don't realize is being changed around us. Yeah. And it's a natural thing. It's like
I think we're going to have a lot more Mandela effects coming up, especially with all the editing and things you see on Google and searching and just wiping things out. The next 10 years, I bet there's going to be a lot
that's just
more.
Rewriting history. What people want to do. But you might be right. I mean, like again, like people see things that, like I read this this person was dead. That's the big one. Is like people I had that right.
Well, that's what happened with Nelson Mandela,
and
I thought he had died. I was one of those people that thought he had died in the 80s, and then come to find out no. But you know, I had one. My mother and I had one, and discovered that it wasn't just me. It was a bunch of people all over the world, and it's not one of those common ones. People talk like about the Fruit Loops box and the
Berenstein Bears.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Shazam.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just misremembering. But there was one that my mother and I experienced. It was a few years back now. We were sitting at the table in my parents' house, and we were trying to recall the name of a particular movie. And it was an old black and white movie about it took place after World War II, and basically what had happened was a plane of army soldiers going over Africa, North Africa, had crash landed, and they had died, and their ghosts were basically playing baseball there, waiting for a day when they were to be rescued. And they didn't know that they were dead. So they were just kind of hanging out by the plane, waiting to be rescued, playing baseball. Couldn't remember the name of the movie. So I'm like, when I get home, Mom, I'll Google that and look it up. So I got home. I'm Googling. I could not find the movie. I'm like, what the hell? Why can't I find this movie?
Sounds like a movie I would have known.
Yeah. So finally I start putting in some more detailed description of the movie, and I came across this forum in which people were describing having the same problem finding this movie, and people were saying, well, you're misremembering. Some of them said this episode out of Twilight Zone. It certainly wasn't that, but some people are saying you are misremembering this movie called Soul Survivor with William Shatner. And it's like, and it came out in like 1970 or 1972 or something like that. And I'm looking at that. I'm like, no,
It's
there's
not the
no.
movie.
It was not a color movie. It certainly didn't have Shatner in it. And that's what a lot of these other people within this forum were saying. And so, but I read enough where I'm like, all right, fine. I'm going to find this movie. I'm going to watch it. There's no way it could possibly be that. And I even called my mom. I was like, Mom, was Shatner in that movie? She was like, no. So, and again, there are a lot of people in this forum from like all different parts of the world that are basically, experiencing this same issue. And so I watched the movie, and it's like, okay, there's the guys. They're playing some baseball, not as much baseball as I remember, but they're playing a little bit of baseball. And here comes these other guys that have found the plane. Shatner is one of these guys, and it is in the movie is in color. And it's like, man, something just seems really off about this. And there was a lot within the movie that I'm just like, I don't remember this. But finally, this one scene, one of the ghosts had gone over to the tents where these this salvage crew was hanging out and set up, and they were listening to a baseball game. And so he was standing by listening to the game. So goes back over to the other guys, the other ghosts, and they're like, so what'd you think of the game? And this guy was a little bit slow. What'd you think of the game? He's like, oh, the game was good, but I don't understand how they moved Brooklyn to LA. And the way he took it was like they moved the whole city of Brooklyn to Los Angeles. And I was like, holy crap, this is that movie. Because I absolutely remembered that line from that movie. And I was like, this is that movie. But how in the world is this?
You remember it so differently.
Yeah,
And your mother. And all these other
and my
people.
mother and all these other people. We were thinking it was like a movie from the 50s. And the whole idea of Shatner being in it was like, no. There's absolutely no way. But here it was. Color movie from like 1970 with William Shatner, and it's what in the world happened?
What would be interesting to dig deeper into that. We got to go to our next commercial break here in about 5 minutes, but would be interesting research-wise to dig deeper into that is to find out who were the writers of this Soul Survivor. How did this movie get produced? Because my theory on this is if this was some kind of not a misremembering, but an actual change or shift in time, that there was an original 1950s movie with this script. Okay, this idea, it's a story. And in a certain timeline, that was filmed, it was a 1950s movie. No William Shatner, as you and your mother and these other people remember it.
Yep.
Something changes in time, that movie does not get made.
But it gets made
in 1970, now
later,
with in color,
yeah.
with William Shatner, and you are going to get some of the same lines if it was a script. Like, how far back does that script go? When did this idea come about? This would be something. Did you ever look into any deeper into where the movie?
I mean, you're on the same path as my thoughts about it. That there was a previous timeline in which that movie did come about, et cetera, but in whatever got changed and. It seems kind of too weird to think about. Okay, if somebody went back in time and changed a few things, why would that be a thing that got changed? But we don't really
butterfly effect though.
Butterfly effect. We don't know how things connect.
Yeah.
Or like again, we're banning movies, we're banning all this stuff, and then there's a lot of remakes right now, reboots. People are redoing movies. Later on down the line, people might remember a movie being a certain way, not realizing it had been banned and remade years later.
But not likely a 1950s movie you couldn't find the original that it was based off of. Like if it was a remake, you'd find the original of the movie. So it seems like this is, like I said, like the way things work in Hollywood and scripts. Sometimes scripts, they're getting development, they're going to make a film, and then it gets canceled, and it sits on a shelf for a while, and then somebody else gets the rights or buys the rights, and they decide to produce it. That if time changed, just something subtle enough that said one producer said, no, we're not going to do this movie now. But in the original timeline, we're going to do this movie. That subtle, the butterfly effect. It's not that somebody went back in time and changed to make sure that movie wasn't going to be made till the 70s. It's just somebody went back in time, did something that caused a cascade moment that led up to basically that movie and other small changes. I'm like Art Bell. I'm a huge fan of the idea of time travel and fascinates the heck out of me. all the the Mandela effect. Since listening to Art Bell and talk about it, always my mind goes to time travel. I was fascinated with the John Teeter stories. Even though I know it's probably a hoax, but anything to do with time travel. Now you have TikTok, which get rid of your TikTok, people. Get rid of your TikTok. Get rid of your TikTok. I don't know how many times I have to say this on the show, but on TikTok now you have all these people saying they're from the future.
Yeah, Jamie and I are both on TikTok.
I'm not. I refuse. Get rid of your TikTok. But
I saw the one question down there in chat. Is it possible you didn't have color TV at home at the time? It was a color TV. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and they wouldn't. Again, like William Shatner. I don't know if you're a Trekkie. I'm a Trekkie. I'll remember whatever.
Yeah,
William
I
Shatner
watched
said.
plenty of Star Trek of the day, and especially around the time that I would have seen. I mean, it would have been probably around Wrath of Khan time that I would have remembered seeing this movie on TV, because it was one of those. I saw it on. I mean, it would have been network TV or something where I saw it. And so.
There's no reason they would make.
So I was very
1970s
familiar with
film black and white.
Shatner, and saw plenty of Star Trek and all that. So
that's a fascinating. See, like I said, I'd love to dig deeper to know who produced it, where the writers did that script originally get made in the 50s. Like, not that you can track what got changed, but just to track the progression of possibilities.
The possibility of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's what fascinates me. We got to go to our last commercial break. Guys, call in if you want to join this conversation. A lot of rabbit holes. Have you had a Mandela effect? That's a good thing to call in.
There you go.
We've got a half an hour. Call in the show and tell me, have you had a Mandela effect? I've talked to a lot of people that do, and you question yourself, is it just bad memory? My wife insists this house exists. She's like, not bad memory. I have a great memory. Can't tell my wife it's her bad memory. She will not accept that. But a lot of people, I think, have these experiences and just write it off. Have you had a Mandela effect experience? Call in the show the last half hour. I want to hear it. All right, we'll be right back after the short commercial break.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
I will hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it. The scientists want it.
but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday at the live stream with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up.
Do,
re,
Egon.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID Jblandoo or Jblandparanormalsoup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Mike Ricksecker. He's the author of A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people, also 8 historic books. He's also been featured on Ancient Aliens, Gaia TV. You know, you knew we were going to go down a lot of rabbit holes tonight with this guest if you're familiar with Mike Ricksecker. And that's what I love having him on this show, because I have guests that specialize in certain things, and we talk about that topic all night long. But I do enjoy guests like this where we can get into many conversations. And I apologize if some of this goes over your head or we go, all these different directions, but this is just like what I like to do. I like to talk about all these different topics in one night. This is what I like to do. But join us. You can join this conversation. We were talking about Mandela effect. Have you had a Mandela effect in your life? I think a number of you probably have in the audience. I would take a pretty good guess that you did. Call in. The lines are now open. Join the conversation, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right, Mike. Thank you for hanging in there for this last half hour of the show. So we're talking about Mandela effect, time travel, aliens. We didn't get Bigfoot yet. We can get into anything. That's what I love having you on the show, to get all these different topics. But the thing what I enjoy about having you on is your vast amount of knowledge in a lot of different areas when it comes to these phenomena. It's not just, when I first met you, it was we were talking about a lot of the haunted like kind of
Right.
haunted ghost stuff. But it's great to have seen you like kind of expand out into all these different areas, and like the Alaskan Triangle and being on Ancient Aliens. For you, what out of all these topics you think is really keeping you in it, like the most fascinated? Like your interest is going the biggest.
Yeah, well, first of all, they're all connected, which is why I've
yeah.
branched it out into a lot of different things here, and that's why I came up with my whole connected universe portal and everything. I mean, what's keeping me in it is the mystery, is trying to figure out, okay, how are all they connected? There's so many different rabbit holes you can go down. Like I'm really interested in the lost civilizations, the ancient history, and the fact that a lot of our ancient cultures, knew about a lot of this phenomenon because we see it within their culture, whether it's in their building architecture, whether it's in their ancient writings. They were talking about it. And so that part has really fascinated me, and that's why I've been going to some of these locations lately, like going back to Egypt and all that, is to try to uncover some of those ancient mysteries that can hopefully shed a light on what happened. Share that knowledge as I come across it, and fingers crossed we don't make the same mistakes again.
That's the thing. We can't learn from our mistakes if we don't know them, and that's why I think there's a lot of evidence that humans have done some bad things and maybe destroyed civilization over several times, and we keep repeating the mistakes. I mean, you look at like the evidence of like maybe possibly nuclear bombs have gone off in our ancient history.
You see that. Yep.
It's fascinating but terrifying at the same time. Of what the potential of what we can do.
And you mentioned the Oppenheimer movie earlier, and I wonder if they're actually going to address that in the movie because of the statements that he made, where he was like, "Well, this isn't the first time."
Yeah, I mean, he was very familiar with like the Vedas of India.
Yep,
and he quoted, what was it? Wasn't it a Sanskrit or something?
It was one of the Vedic texts.
Vedic text, yeah.
Yeah, it was the. Sorry,
I am Shiva.
It's 1:30 in the morning. I don't know. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, Shiva the Destroyer, but you see in what's the ancient city over there that they uncovered? But you see the vitrification within the stones there, and that the people lying in the streets that were immediately incinerated. And that's believed to have possibly been an ancient nuclear explosion.
I mean, they talk about it, what these weapons the supposed gods had or whatever. It's like Star Wars, but in ancient India.
Right,
going on. I mean, basically, that's what it is. And I'm a big Star Wars fan too. I always wonder, like in our subconscious, we make these stories, write these stories that are also, in a way, something that's in our subconscious retelling of stuff that's actually happened. In a way, this is buried in our collective unconscious in some way.
Yeah, I think that we do tap into that knowledge from time to time. That it's, is it up there in the Akashic records and we're pulling down. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at that, but I think collectively there's a knowledge ingrained in the universe.
Uh-oh, he paused. Don't tell me we lost him.
Okay.
You paused there. Whatever you were saying was lost. It told you froze.
Yeah, everything just started spinning there. Yeah.
Oh boy.
What was the last thing
Hang
I
in there,
said?
Internet. We were talking about just the shoot. Now I lost it. It's 12:30 my time.
Yeah, no,
it's late.
But just the fact that if that information is going to be collectively ingrained in the universe somewhere.
Yes.
Whether it's the Akashic records, the collective unconscious, somewhere along the way, whatever has happened in now Jason's spinning.
Oh no, I'm here. Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. It's going to be out there somewhere, and so it's a matter of figuring out how to be able to access that. Remember, I talked earlier, everything that has happened is happening and will happen. They're all happening at the same time. So can we traverse those points in time to be able to collect that information from our past, which in one sense has already happened, but in another sense is happening right now.
Do we affect it if we observe it? we
Well,
can go back
there's
to the
that
past.
too. Yeah, the observer effect. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was a show that had one season. What was it called? It was a few number of years ago, not too long ago, where human civilization's totally fallen apart. We've polluted the planet so bad. Everything, we're dying off. And they discover a portal to like 2.5 million years ago. But it is, like I said, a parallel past, they think, because they can step on all the butterflies they want. It's not going to affect the future and it'll create a paradox or whatever. God, I can't remember the name of the show, but I always found that interesting. Is like whatever, like kind of you see the symbol, the snake eating itself. That we are
the Ouroboros, yes,
right. Like we're destined to get to a point where we go back.
Well,
because we've ruined this timeline, we ruined the Earth or whatever, and the only way is to go backwards and start over.
Yeah, it's a constant cycle of renewal, and we see that within nature. As nature dies, it decays into the ground, but then new life grows up. We see that with solar systems. Many physicists believe that our solar system that we currently have came out of a previous solar system, and so you'd have to also take that to the universe. So what was before the universe? The universe. It's constantly going in a cycle. So when this universe dies, it will be reborn again.
The eternal return. It's the cycle. It's one of the things I mentioned Battlestar Galactica. I was a big fan of that sci-fi series, the revamp. Yep. It's one of the few things in sci-fi where they remake something that is better than the original, in my opinion. And I don't want to spoil it for people, but if you haven't watched it by now, I don't know what to tell you. But the whole idea of that is they show you all these things in the show. They're like, well, that's very much, even though they're not part of our galaxy, whatever, very human-like. They lead you on kind of like some expectations that they change at the end when they end up on planet Earth. With
it was a nice twist.
It was great. I loved it. I some people weren't happy with the ending. I was. I thought that's one of the best ways they can end it. And it was just such a good 4 seasons. But I love that idea that they come in and they had all their that would have happened with an alien civilization. It ended up having to crash land here or stay here or develop here. Is that all these scenes that they had? Remember, because they had all these things that are very much like us in their civilization, but that their influence on this primitive civilization and their mixture into it eventually led to the same deal happening again, because they end with letting you know that we're recreating the same thing that they did when they created the Cylons, that we're doing it now with the AI, that this is leading to that we're doing the same. It's all going to repeat again. We're going to do there's going to be another Battlestar Galactica, say there's going to be more Cylons. Like it just keeps repeating. It was very poetic. I loved the writing of that show, but that's what I wonder is that are we in this, all this stuff from ancient times that we've lost, it is some kind of a merger of either a continuation of an endless cycle of, AI created doomsdays, then with aliens landing here, or is it us traveling back to the past? There's some big missing piece, I think, that could explain a lot when it comes to like ancient aliens and that. I don't know if we'll ever get it, but I feel like some people do have it. I feel like some of the overlords of information or whatever they're trying to keep things secret must have a reason, and it must be because they do know.
Well, yeah, and that's why they're collecting a lot of these different artifacts. It either has the the information that they're seeking to answer, because I don't think they have all the answers themselves, but they're seeking those answers. There's a lot of ideas about them having artifacts that they believe contain some sort of power. You look at a lot of the ancient Egyptian artwork and sculptures and things like that, and you see a lot of these staffs and things like this that they're holding that are generating different effects, like levitation of the temple. Well, where are the rods? And so either one, it's like we've talked about before, they just disintegrated because they were metal or whatever, or the ones that did survive are now in the hands of private collectors. Either
the Staff of Destiny and the rumors of that with Hitler, and people were and you get back to the Bible times of Noah, or not Noah, Moses and Aaron, and these scenes that just a stick of wood or we picture or what's described now could have been some kind of ancient technology too. Or some kind of alien giving us technology, or whatever, the Spear of Destiny. That's what, not Staff Destiny. Spear of Destiny. But that the people, Indiana Jones. I hope Indiana Jones 5 is not going to be hot garbage. I really am praying it's not. But I'm a big Indiana Jones fan. My kids love Indiana Jones. My son went in Indiana Jones for Halloween. Fun. I mean, love Indiana Jones. And I don't know how you felt, but I actually did like the alien twist and everything in the last movie they did. A lot of people hated it.
I liked that.
Loved it.
I thought some of the action scenes were way over the top and were extraneous and all that. But I was fine with the alien thing.
But some people that's what pissed off people about that, was that being thrown in. And I'm like, really? That's what pissed you off? I mean, he had the Ark of Covenant, melting Nazis, and that was God. But now we have aliens. It's a problem with the aliens, because it's just as miraculous as the Ark of the Covenant. It's I loved that part of it. That was the one part of that whole movie I loved. Not Shia LaBeouf for sure. That was the least part I liked about it. But that's why I'm hoping the fifth one's not going to be hot garbage. I'm like, please don't do that. I don't know if you've ever seen South Park. South Park, when they show George Lucas and Spielberg bending Harrison Ford over, is what I think about. Have you ever seen that that episode? But when I was a kid, Indiana Jones, I wanted to be an archeologist. It made me want to look into our past and our history. And when I
saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, and what I did was I grabbed the Bible at home, and I'm like, okay, let me track what happened to the Ark of the Covenant.
Same here. I did the same thing, dude. That's what got me into the Bible, was Indiana Jones. Honestly, it was. It really got me into. I've read the Bible several times, mainly when I was younger, because Indiana Jones.
So let me ask you then, where do you think is the Ark of the Covenant? Do you believe it's there in Ethiopia, or do you think it's somewhere else?
See, the Ethiopia thing feels like it could be there just because of the priests and their commitment. And why would they? I don't know. Them going blind and the ailments, feels like there's something there. They get
tapped for life for that too. So it's like, oh, you're the guy, and then
it's very serious, and it seems like they go blind, and it just seems like there's some kind of physical effect to being around whatever's in that temple in Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. But then I don't know. But then there's so much evidence historically that it would still be in Jerusalem, under the Temple Mount, maybe. Buried somewhere deep. There's one person who claimed they found it.
It basically just does disappear. Yeah, and you have a lot of people that claim all these different.
Uri Geller said he was going to find it last year. What happened, Uri? I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, but Elephantine Island. So the whole Ethiopia trek, if that's where it ended up, Elephantine Island is one location where it would have stopped along the way for, they say, 400, 500 years, and there's an actual crypt under there, and you can go and look at it, where it would have been kept. Well, some people believe that it is actually still there on that island too, just in another chamber somewhere else deeper within the island. So you have all these fantastic ideas. I think it's lost.
Some people believe they brought it to America. That the Knights Templar had it.
It's in Oak Island.
Oak Island, yeah. And I'm like,
I don't believe that one. The Ark of the Covenant is not in Oak Island. I think there's other things that are hidden on Oak Island.
And the question is, what was the Ark of the Covenant? I love that Indiana Jones are it's a radio to God, or something like that.
Yeah.
What was it?
And some
what did
people
it do?
believe it was a energy generator,
or held the remnants of a nuclear reactor.
Right. There's those ideas. So the whole concept of the Ark of the Covenant, the Egyptian culture had many arks.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a part of their ceremony. And if you go to the Temple of Edfu, you can go look right at one. It's sitting right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically the ancient Hebrews got the idea of an ark from ancient Egypt, which makes sense, because if they were there, together they would have, ideas would have crossed back and forth.
And Moses would have been part of the Egyptian culture and dynasty that would had these things like the covenant and the knowledge.
Right. So, and there's a lot of ideas about, the like Akhenaten, because because he made the religion there a monotheism. So, was he influenced by whomever Moses may have been, or did he go into monotheism inspire Moses? There's a lot of.
Or
different
was
ways
he? I have one book that claims that he was Moses. Is Akhenaten. Oh, I can't remember. I have it on my bookshelf somewhere, but it was an extensive book, a guy's theory that Akhenaten was really what the story of Moses came from. I don't know. There was a tomb of Akhenaten, right? They found his body, so I always thought that wouldn't be possible. That would be unless the story's been changed, or whatever.
Well, yeah, and they tried to wipe out Akhenaten. We didn't know about him until really the last few decades, because
he's the father of Tutankhamun.
Right.
He's
the father of King Tut. Right. And that whole line, which if you go to like the Temple of Abydos, they have one of the biggest kings lists there on the wall, and that whole line, it doesn't even exist on that wall.
And why erase him and I mean, it looked like Tutankhamun was right. He was probably murdered, right? Isn't that what the evidence said, that he was probably killed?
It looks like, and it's hard to know. So that's one theory, that it could have been killed. Another, he did suffer from physical ailments,
obviously,
so it could have been natural. So the jury's still out on it, because the priest there, who basically, he had been a priest for Akhenaten. When Akhenaten died, he was basically guiding Tutankhamun, and then Tut died, and so then it was like this battle between Tut's mother and Sai, and all of a sudden Tut's mother dies, and you got this Sai guy that's still around who just kind of took things over. And so eventually he died, or he was murdered, or something. Like, I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But basically, it was like, in the aftermath of it all, the people were like, we're just going to forget this whole line ever existed, and we're going to wipe them out of the record.
To the older religion, basically. It's like he tried to introduce something completely new.
They went back to polytheism. They decided to wipe these people from the record. But you have to then question, okay, if they were wiped from the record, we eventually discovered that they existed and all that. But if they were wiped from the record, who's to say that, that there aren't others that have been stricken from the record that we still haven't found proof of? So this whole lineage could be far, far more extensive and far longer than we previously recognized.
And it's also, I mean, if you look at the age, is it the Egyptian or Sumerian? I think it's more Sumerian. But you look at the age of some of the kingdoms or kings who ruled. It's longer than 100 years. Some of them are like 1,000 years. Like lifespans were longer. People were maybe different.
What's interesting, about that Abydos Kings list. So basically, it's down a hallway, and the one side has the Kings list. The other side has the netters, the gods, and those have very, very long lifespans. And so traditional archaeology says, well, this King's list over here, that's good, that's accurate, thumbs up. But the other wall over there, no, that's just mythology.
It's made up.
It's like,
oh, we're gonna put the real stuff here, and we're gonna put the made up stuff here.
Yeah, we're gonna pick and choose what we're gonna say is good, and what we're gonna say is mythology. The Egyptian culture believed that those gods, those netters, really truly existed,
and the people who wrote it on the wall believed it truly existed, and they're a lot closer to that time period than we are, to know. And the thing is, it seems like whatever the dynastic period, they were trying to carry on a tradition of something else, another civilization, even maybe before them, and trying to appear as it. You know, because you look at like the way that's another thing interesting about Akhenaten is the way his depictions are, like the way he depicted himself totally differently than
it's
any of
very,
the other.
very different. Yeah, because there are a lot of depictions of him that are very feminine in nature, and you see
Potbelly and
you got the weird
elongated
pot
head.
belly. It's just the whole thing is very, very awkward and very strange. And
well, all the other ones made themselves look like big superheroes, you know,
right? Yeah.
And the totally different change of religion, and it makes you what influenced him. And I love the Ancient Aliens covered Akhenaten, and they talk about the Annen, or whatever, the disc in the sky, or the god, the sun god, or whatever. Was he worshiping the sun, or was he worshiping a disc in the sky? You know, like something influenced that change in that culture drastically at that time, and something also wanted to make sure that we didn't know about it. be it the politics of that time, and that's just what they did. They erased people from their walls and made sure nobody knew. It was important enough that they wanted to erase it for future generations wouldn't know about it. At least the Egyptians, whoever.
What's interesting about that is we actually saw that in Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments when basically even though
History of the World,
they
15 commandments. Oh,
right. Even though they really changed a lot of the story, when Moses is exiled in that movie, they go through the whole he is to be stricken from the record, erase any knowledge of him whatsoever, and it's like, okay, that's Hollywood, etc. But it's like, no, we're being given a message there that actually this did happen. People were stricken from the record, and it was a couple decades later that they found the records of Akhenaten used as filler in some of the columns there.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, that really happened. So
yeah, they really did strike people from the record. That is an interesting point on that. Well,
I like Jamie. It makes me think of cancel culture today. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cancel culture's been
totally
around forever. Yes.
Yeah, it was the it's the historical cancel culture back then. Is they just scratched your name off the wall, and say you're canceled. Yeah.
Yeah, and that whole series there with Akhenaten, Tut, Sai, and then I forget the mother's name, but there
Nefertiti. Was that Nefertiti?
Whoever Akhenaten's wife was, the mother of King Tut.
I thought it was Nefertiti.
It might be.
Yeah, I think it was. I think.
It's a little late.
It's late to remember
right now. But basically, it was one of those. We're gonna just cancel, that whole thing and try to forget that ever happened.
There's so many interesting things of that time period in Egypt. That's why I have a couple books on it. Like I said, a guy who theorizes it's Moses, because I've always been interested in that time period. Before I ever saw it in Ancient Aliens, before Ancient Aliens existed, I was interested in this period of history of Egypt.
Moses is an Egyptian word. That's an Egyptian name. And you look at like Tutmosis, and there were several of Tutmosis. Moses is an Egyptian name.
I don't know if Akhenaten was Moses or not, but there's definitely some connection there and influence. And if you look at what was going on in that period with Tutankhamun after his father and the control, look at he had the knife made out of meteorite stone.
Yeah.
Or a blade or whatever. There's something.
Yeah, the blade was a meteorite, and then on his breastplate it was Libyan desert glass, which is basically melted glass from a meteorite. So they were very, very in touch with the things that fell from the heavens.
I just noticed somebody. See, I have a sting phone line. Well, that's me calling. Somebody tried calling in. I'm trying to call them back, but we'll take them those last few minutes here. Hey, you're on the air. I'm sorry. I don't know why it wasn't picking you up.
No problem. I know you guys only got a few minutes left. So.
Yeah. Go ahead, though.
I wanted to ask a question because he brought up the whole thing about being stricken from the record in the Egyptian archives, and he talked about that in the 10 Commandments, that Moses and the Hebrew slaves would be stricken from the record and all that kind of stuff, as if it never happened from history. Do you think, could it be possible that in all actuality it was really the exile of Akhenaten that was stricken from the record, and in biblical record it was used to replace the history of Akhenaten?
That's kind of what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an
Because
interesting
Michael
concept.
Tsarian.
It's possible.
That's the book. That's
Michael
the book. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Michael Tsarian talked about that.
That's the book I have. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I remember the name because I have that book. His whole thesis on that idea. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, too.
It did. It was a really good book.
Yeah, he also theorizes that the ancient Hebrews of that time who became the Jews were actually followers and dedicated people to Akhenaten, that the whole thing was an exile, and the whole Old Testament is a cover-up for that exile and the rebrandishing of the Akhenaten Empire.
Yeah, it's a really good book. I remember the full title. Do you remember the full title of his main book, like when he first proposed this? I have it. I just can't see my bookshelf right now. I don't know where I have it. It's it came out a number of years ago. He wrote this, and it's really interesting.
It wasn't like alien genetic mutation, and
he did have a lot of that in there about like the sun cycles and stuff. But it was Akhenaten and something. It was titled Akhenaten, and I can't remember. But that's the author. That is definitely it. I remember that. I'm glad somebody else has read it.
But he does talk about it, though. If you find it on YouTube, he does an interview with Red Ice Creations, in which he talks about that whole history that he did the research on and accounts for.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's to me one of the most fascinating periods in Egyptology that I think there's a lot more that could be discovered or looked into about what dynamics or what was going on if we had, who was Akhenaten, what changed their culture, was this alien involved? There's so much to that. And you didn't mention the genetic mutations and birth rates that he talks about in that book, about the sun cycles and affecting like birth rates and stuff. And they had this low birth rate. There's a lot in there. There's a lot that goes on with his thesis of this. But thank you for calling in and sharing that, because I couldn't remember the name of the author.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to have to find out what you're talking about and, read it.
Yeah, you just heard him talking. You haven't read the book. Yeah, he has a book. I remember the name. Yeah. I have it. It's Akhenaten something, and I can't remember. I just know it starts with Akhenaten, and I can't remember the last part of it or whatever. But everything you're talking about is in that book. Yes.
Yeah, but he does it. Yeah, you find it on YouTube. He has this awesome interview that he does going in depth on that.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. So, no problem, man. You guys have a good night.
You too.
Have a good night.
All right.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I said, it's one of the most fascinating time periods. There's so much, I know, rabbit hole here. That you're one of the best guests for the go down the rabbit hole. You have your own show on that. Last thing, get out to people. Where I know you have the trip in a couple weeks to Egypt, but you said there's going to be one in 2024, and you have your online classes. Want to get all that information out to people?
Yeah, absolutely. So my official website is MikeRicksecker.com. I have the ConnectedUniversePortal.com, which is the online learning site. We have I have the Alaska tour coming up, SailWithSpirit.com. That's in September. And then, we'll be back in Egypt next year, which we're getting the details together for that. So once I have all that, we'll post it.
How many people get to go on that trip? Like how many bookings?
We usually do like up to 30 is kind of around the number that we like to go with. So
I don't know if I can talk my wife into let me go do that, but she knows it's a dream of mine. Yeah, get her to fly.
Get her to fly.
And then find somebody to watch her kids, because she's not gonna let them fly.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, hey, it's been great to have you on the show again. Definitely got to do this again. Totally enjoyed it. I can't wait to get to watch the newer season of Ancient Aliens when I get an opportunity to see you on it. I'm like, there's another one I had on the show I know.
There you go.
Well, thank you, guys. That's it for the show. We will be back next week with Patrick Spain to talk about his book, A Little Bigfoot on the Hunt in Sumatra. We're going to talk about little Bigfoots next week. And we're going to pull up that Google Earth image of the supposed Bigfoot cut on Google Earth just recently that they've been talking about. That we're going to see if we can look at it ourselves next week on the World Wide Web of Weird. But that's it, guys. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Rob. I know you're listening. We'll talk to you guys next week. Have a great night.
Good night.